Chapter 139. After Nyetion finished speaking, Gui stiffened and did not respond for a long time. If not for Nyetion's serious expression, he would have thought that the other party was joking. The devil fire diagram belonged to Gui. For the doomsday flame, Gui had been hiding in the black market for more than 20 years. He had even been injured by the doomsday flame. Even the remnant flame of the doomsday flame that he had forced out with his life had been muddle-headed by Nyetion's disciple. Let's not talk about this for the time being. Now that he had asked for Nyetion's help, the other party actually raised such high conditions. This was simply choking Gui to the point that he could not spit out a single word. The doomsday flame would be divided equally, and the other things would all belong to Nyetion. Most importantly, Nyetion actually wanted the devil fire diagram in Gui's hands. It had to be said that this series of conditions of Nyetion was indeed a little too much. Young Master Nye, your request is too much. This old man cannot agree. Gui's mouth twitched for a long time as he said angrily. Moreover, Gui had a question in his heart. Once they found the doomsday flame, the devil fire diagram in his hands would be useless. What did Nyetion want the devil fire diagram for? Since that's the case, then I can only apologize. Nyetion had already expected this reaction from Gui. He only smiled apologetically and immediately turned to leave without saying a word. Nyetion walked away step by step, but he was counting his steps in his heart. When he counted to 10, he was already about to walk out of the Danhart Pavilion. Just at this time, Gui's voice sounded. Brother Nye. Gui took a few steps forward and pulled Nyetion back. He squeezed out a stiff smile and said, Why are you so inflexible? You can't even say a few words, and then you leave. Let's discuss it again. Gui, I'm still waiting to save my friend. Actually, if not for saving my friend, I would not want the other half of the demon fire. Nyetion's face revealed a trace of embarrassment, but his heart was blooming with joy. He knew that this old fox Gui had finally given in. Nyetion had long since seen that Gui must have encountered an extremely thorny problem. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to bitterly wait for more than 10 years without making a move. With Gui's status, it was very easy for him to invite a few true energy realm or even spirit will realm warriors. However, he did not do so. This undoubtedly meant that the problem he encountered was not something that could be solved by force. Since Gui was so persistent in asking Nyetion for help, then Nyetion naturally had to raise the price. As the saying goes, only an idiot would not take advantage of an opportunity. At a time like this, wouldn't Nyetion be stupid if he didn't ruthlessly bite Gui? Gui had a serious expression as he looked at Nyetion. He didn't dare take the latter to be a child any longer, and he cursed Nyetion 100 times in his heart. This stinking brat that's still wet behind his ears has a heart that's even blacker than mine. Brother Nye, can't you change your conditions? Gui could already tell that Nyetion was definitely not the kind of person who could bargain, so he might as well ask directly. I can't change it. Nyetion nodded solemnly. His face was calm, without the slightest trace of a teenager's childishness. On the contrary, he was like an extremely shrewd old fox. Fine. Gui let out a long sigh and said angrily, I agree. Gui's goatee straightened, and the expression on his face was more painful than having his flesh cut off. Originally, he wanted to trick Nyetion once, but he didn't expect to be extorted instead. It really made him speechless. Gui didn't even understand how he unknowingly fell into Nyetion's trap. It's a deal. Nyetion smiled knowingly. He didn't expect Gui to be so straightforward. He originally thought that he would have to put in a lot of effort. Gui, this old fox, no matter how he looked at it, was not someone who was easy to deal with. For him to agree to Nyetion's conditions so readily, he must have encountered some big trouble. Since both parties already came to an agreement, Gui no longer concealed it and said straightforwardly, The Doomsday Flame is currently hiding in a forbidden land in Tyrant Cloud mountain range. The forbidden land's name is Burial Cloud Abyss. Rumor has it that Burial Cloud Abyss is a mass grave formed during the ancient fiend god Great War. The interior is filled with baleful chi, and it's the Doomsday Flame's favorite. Mass grave? Nyetion frowned slightly and immediately became interested. In ancient times, fiend gods fought endlessly. Since Burial Cloud Abyss was a mass grave left behind during the Fiend God Great War, there might be many treasures inside. Luckily, I made it clear in advance. The other things obtained are all mine. Nietian couldn't help praising his own wisdom in his heart and immediately asked, Old Gu, you've already been to Burial Cloud Abyss. There should be many forbidden arrays inside, right? Old Gu shook his head and sighed, saying, Honestly speaking, the last time I entered Burial Cloud Abyss, I only circled around the periphery and didn't enter the depths of the abyss. So I'm not sure what's inside the abyss either. Nietian nodded his head and asked curiously, I'm very curious. With your status, you can totally invite experts much stronger than me. Why must you make me help? Stinking brat, do you think that I really want you to help? Gu laughed bitterly and said, The last time I entered Burial Cloud Abyss, I discovered that there are powerful restrictions inside the abyss. If Manifestation Realm and above martial artists enter, their strength will be suppressed by the restrictions. Also, the stronger the martial artist's strength, the stronger the suppression. In order to enter Burial Cloud Abyss, this old man did not hesitate to consume forbidden pills and forcefully suppress my strength back to the 9th level Essence Spirit Realm. This, Nietian looked at Gu suspiciously and said with an embarrassed smile, Old Gu, for the sake of the fiend fire, you're really going all out. That's of course. Gu had a proud look as he said, I pursue alchemy wholeheartedly. Martial path cultivation isn't important to me. Forget about my strength falling back to the 9th level Essence Spirit Realm. Even if I fall back to Essence Meridian Martial Artist, I won't hesitate to. Gu said it vehemently and passionately, but Nietian was speechless. Then why do you need my help? Isn't it easier to find martial artists below the Manifestation Realm? Nietian continued to ask. Martial artists below the Manifestation Realm are naturally easy to find. Gu chuckled and looked at Nietian with a malicious look as he said, But martial artists below the Manifestation Realm who possess strength comparable to Giant Spirit Realm martial artists are not easy to find. Inside Burial Cloud Abyss, dangers are everywhere. Furthermore, there are forbidden formations and traps everywhere. Ordinary Essence Spirit martial artists, however many go in, they all die. Then on what basis do you think that I won't die if I go in? Nietian looked at that malicious look of Gu Yi's and smiled speechlessly. Gu Yi's smile became even more horrifying as he said, Younger brother Nya, you're not an ordinary Essence Spirit martial artist. You're an Essence Spirit martial artist with strength comparable to the Giant Spirit Realm. The battle between you and that assassin that day, old brother saw it all. Annihilation Earth Seal. This move is world-shaking. Most likely, even ordinary Giant Spirit martial artists will find it hard to receive it too. You're absolutely the person I'm looking for. So, that was how it was. Looks like that day when Nietian and Tang Yu battled, Gu this old fox had been secretly observing all along. Nietian finally understood why Gu would agree to his terms so readily. People like Nietian who only had Essence Spirit Realm strength but possessed the battle prowess of the Giant Spirit Realm were 1 in a trillion. If Gu missed out on Nietian this time, perhaps he would never be able to find a second person like Nietian forever. Chapter 140. Gu looked at Nietian and suddenly asked, Brother Nya, I have a question that I don't understand. Once we get the Doomsday Flame, this Demon Fire diagram number 13 will be useless. Why do you still want it? Nietian smiled mysteriously and said, I have my own use for it, but I can't tell you. TSK, I don't care about it. Gu waved his hand, looking as though he didn't care at all. Nietian wanted the Demon Fire diagram because he had his own use for it. Once he found the Doomsday Flame, the Demon Fire diagram number 13 would lose its use for searching for demonic flames. But it was still a Demon Fire diagram. Nietian wanted to study the Demon Fire diagram properly and figure out how it sensed the existence of demonic flames. As long as he understood the principle of the Demon Fire diagram, Nietian could make his own Demon Fire diagram. At that time, he would know the existence of all demonic flames. However, the Demon Fire diagram was the work of an ancient God Realm alchemist. It was definitely not easy to understand its profoundness. But Tian liked to do things that were not easy. There was a saying that if one did not dare to challenge a difficult task, it was to limit one's potential. Fu! At this moment, Gu Yi suddenly shouted, "Big brother, I'm here." A low, muffled voice came from the Dan Hart Pavilion. Then, a very strange figure walked out. This figure was only the height of a 10-year-old child, but he had an abnormally thick beard that covered his entire face. Furthermore, his figure was very robust, giving people a feeling that his entire body was filled with strength. Dwarf clan? Tian looked at Tong Fu and exclaimed, "Yo!" Tong Fu looked at Tian and laughed loudly. "Little boy, you seem to have a lot of knowledge. You actually know that I am the noblest dwarf clan warrior." Gu Yi also looked at Tian in surprise. He didn't expect Tian to know about the existence of the dwarf clan. Actually, in this world, other than humans, there were also dwarfs, elves, beastmen, and demons. However, these races were defeated by humans in the ancient war, so they declined. Dwarfs, elves, beastmen, and demons could only be seen occasionally in first-rate empires. They had basically been reduced to human slaves and had a very low status in the human society. Among Tian's 9 direct disciples, one of them was a dwarf clan warrior. Therefore, when he saw Tong Fu, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Tian laughed. "You are also very good. You are already in 9th level giant spirit realm." Although the dwarves were much smaller than humans, their physiques were much stronger than humans, and their lifespans were several times longer than humans. A 100-year-old dwarf, if measured by human age, would be considered to have just reached adulthood, which meant that he was in his 20s. Therefore, Tong Fu's martial arts aptitude was very heaven-defying, almost comparable to MOU or Raindrop Thousand Leaves. Tian looked at Tian and asked, "Tian Gu Tian? Who is Tian?" Tian M Dong, E, Titong, E. Gu Tian Gu Tian Gu. He shook his head innocently. He was even more surprised than Tong Fu. Even Gu Yi couldn't tell Tong Fu's age and strength at a glance. In fact, Tian was able to do it not because his perception was above Gu Yi's, but because he had a dwarf clan disciple in his previous life and was more familiar with the dwarf clan. Tong Fu looked at Tian with a strange look and said, "Brat, quickly say, how do you know my age and strength?" Tian smiled speechlessly and said honestly, "I have a friend who is a dwarf, so I am more familiar with the dwarf clan." "You have a friend from the dwarf clan?" Tong Fu let out a strange cry. Suddenly, his eyes flashed and he laughed mischievously. "Is it a man or a woman?" "It must be a woman, right? Can you introduce her to this lord?" "This lord has a dignified appearance, an imposing appearance, and lush body hair. She will definitely like me." Tian was speechless. This dwarf must have gone crazy from thinking about his wife. "I'm sorry, my friend is a man." Tian had an apologetic look on his face. "A man." Tong Fu was quite disappointed, but soon after, he thought of something and said excitedly, "A man is fine too." "A man is fine too?" Tian's body trembled, and he immediately felt a chill. Tong Fu laughed mischievously and said, "He definitely has an older sister, younger sister, or cousin, right? Hurry up and bring your friend over." Only then did Tian react. He let out a sigh of relief and said, "My friend isn't here. I really can't bring him over." Tian's dwarf clan disciple was in the heaven realm. How could he possibly come here? Furthermore, he doesn't have an older sister, younger sister, or cousin, but he does have a daughter. Tian still remembered that before he died, his dwarf clan disciple's daughter had just been born. Right now, she should be a little more than 100 years old, and she really is a good match for Tong Fu. Thinking up to here, Tian became speechless. It seems like I have thought too far into the future. Tong Fu still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Gu Yi. Gu Yi said, "Fu, don't pester Brother Nye anymore. I said that I will find you a wife, and I will definitely do it." "Big brother, you have to keep your word," Tong Fu said solemnly. "Of course." Gu Yi nodded heavily, then continued, "Fu, for the next period of time, I will be doing some things with Brother Nye, so I will leave the Danhart Pavilion to you. When I am not here, close the Danhart Pavilion for the time being. If you encounter any problems, don't pester others. Wait for me to come back. Gui's words were sincere and earnest, just like how an adult would instruct a child to look after the house after leaving home. However, looking at Tong Fu's age, he was indeed still a child. Furthermore, the dwarf clan had a special characteristic. They were stubborn. Once they set their mind on something, even 100 Black Bulls wouldn't be able to pull them back. Big brother, you're going out? Bring me along. I will definitely not cause any trouble. I promise. Tong Fu was very excited, excitedly raising his hand to guarantee. However, Gui shook his head and said, Brother Nya and I have something important to take care of. We can't bring you along. Tong Fu was unhappy. He pulled Gui and said, Big brother, I beg of you, bring me along. Nya Tian was speechless as he watched from the side. Although Tong Fu had lived for nearly 100 years, he was still a child who had not grown up. Gui put on a stern face and pretended to be angry. Fu, don't be like this. If you continue like this, Big brother won't find you a wife. This move was indeed effective. When Tong Fu heard that Gui was not going to find him a wife, he immediately let go of Gui's clothes and put his hands behind his back. He chuckled and said, Big brother, don't worry. When you're not here, Fu will definitely look after the Danhart Pavilion. I guarantee that not a single medicinal ingredient will be missing. Gui nodded and waved his hand. You can go. Tong Fu agreed and turned to return to the inner hall of the Danhart Pavilion. Halfway there, he thought of something and suddenly turned to Nya Tian and said, Little boy, don't forget to introduce your friend to me. After saying this, Tong Fu felt relieved and went back. Chapter 141. Nya Tian and Gui left the black market and entered Blue Cloud City. Nya Tian wasn't in a hurry to enter Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range. He first returned to the Jin estate to meet Jin Mingxin before heading to Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range with Gui. Nya Tian and Gui planned to enter Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range directly from Tyrant Cloud Academy. Moreover, they did so with great fanfare. Just as they were about to enter Tyrant Cloud Academy, all the forces in Blue Cloud City made a move. Binji Estate. What? Nya Tian and an old man entered Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range? Lan Binji spat out a mouthful of tea because he was too excited. It's true, Qin Yulong said with a strange expression. News just came from Tyrant Cloud Academy. There's only him and an old man. I wonder what they're doing in Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range. The Qin clan had been following Nya Tian for the past few days. It could be said that Nya Tian's every move was under the Qin clan's control. However, the Qin clan naturally wouldn't make a move against Nya Tian again. Even if Nya Tian went to the black market, the Qin clan wouldn't dare to act rashly. What's the old man's strength? Lan Binji asked. I don't know. Qin Yulong shook his head and said, He seems to be someone from the black market. I sent someone to inquire about him. He's the shopkeeper of a medicine shop in the black market. He shouldn't be very strong. A medicine shop shopkeeper? Lan Binji rubbed his chin and said in surprise, Could it be that Nya Tian wants to enter Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range to pick herbs? Very likely. Qin Yulong said with a sinister smile, Your Highness, anything can happen if Nya Tian enters Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range. Should we do something? Lan Binji naturally understood what Qin Yulong meant. He smiled coldly and said, Of course we should do something. How can this prince miss such a good opportunity to kill Nya Tian? Anything could happen if Nya Tian entered Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range. It was very likely that he would die in Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range. This was undoubtedly a good opportunity to kill Nya Tian. Bang! Lan Binji's heart skipped a beat. He directly smashed the teacup and smiled coldly. Let's go find Shang Mingyu right now. He'll definitely be very interested. At the same time, in a secret place in Blue Cloud City, a black-robed figure was hidden in the darkness. He did not move at all, as if he had already merged with the darkness. A moment later, another black-robed figure appeared. It was Tang Yuyu. Tang Yuyu bowed to the person in the darkness and called out, Godfather, you're here. The Bloodbat sect master's breathing was weak, his voice like a funeral bell. He said in a deep voice, Are your injuries healed? I am. Yu nodded. After being injured by Nie Tian last time, Tang Yu had rested for more than 10 days, and now he had completely recovered. Her body had recovered, but the trauma to her heart had not. Instead, it was getting worse by the day. Tang Yu had failed twice, and the second time, he was even injured by Nie Tian. Tang Yu's career as an assassin was facing a huge challenge. Every time she thought of Nie Tian, Tang Yu's life as an assassin was facing a huge challenge. If she couldn't kill Nie Tian, she would feel as if there was a thorn in her back. Tang Yu, do you know why you lost Nie Tian twice? Gao Jin said in a low voice. Tang Yu thought for a moment and said, I was too careless. Careless? Gao Jin smiled. Is it really as simple as carelessness? According to my observation, Nie Tian is stronger than you. If you meet him again, you will definitely fail. That won't happen. Tang Yu roared and shouted, Absolutely not. Gao Jin didn't say anything. He threw a pill to Tang Yu. Yuan burst pill. Tang Yu took the pill and was stunned. Gao Jin said, This is a 4th stage Yuan burst pill. After taking it, you can break through to the giant spirit realm in an instant. I hope you won't let me down this time. Yes. Thank you, foster father. Tang Yu bowed. Go. Nie Tian is in the tyrannical Cloud Mountain Range. Gao Jin's figure disappeared into the darkness. Nie Tian, this time, I will definitely kill you. Tang Yu held the Yuan burst pill tightly. A cold light flickered in his eyes. Tang Yu, you have another mission this time. Furthermore, this mission is more important than killing Nie Tian. Gao Jin nodded slightly. A strange light shone in his eyes. Foster father, please speak. Tang Yu said respectfully. Kill Lan Binji. Gao Jin said word by word. His voice was extremely gloomy. In the tyrannical Cloud Mountain Range, Nie Tian and Gu Yi walked side by side. Nie Tian had a faint smile on his face. He looked very relaxed. Gu Yi, who was beside him, became more and more confused. His brows furrowed even more. Finally, Gu Yi couldn't bear it anymore and asked angrily, Nie Tian, you were the one who attracted those people behind us, right? Has Elder Gu sensed it? How many people are there? Nie Tian didn't find it strange. His mental power wasn't strong enough, and his divine sense wasn't strong enough. Therefore, he didn't notice that someone was following him. However, he seemed to have known that someone was following him. That's right, Nie Tian already knew that someone was following him. The reason why he returned to the Jin residence and entered the tyrannical Cloud Mountain Range without hesitation was to send a message to his enemies. Nie Tian is going to the tyrannical Cloud Mountain Range. This is a good opportunity to kill him. Lan Binji, Qin clan, Shang Mingyu, and the assassins hiding in the dark. These were the enemies that Nie Tian was facing. However, Nie Tian's current strength wasn't enough to fight them head-on. Therefore, he could only use a trick to lure the snake out of its hole. Nie Tian wanted these enemies to take the initiative to find him. This way, he would be able to eliminate them one by one. As long as he entered the tyrannical Cloud Mountain Range, Nie Tian was confident that he could deal with any enemies. Stinking brat, you lured them here on purpose. Gu Yi immediately understood and said exasperatedly, You've really offended a lot of people. Apart from the assassin from last time, there are actually 2 more groups of people following us. Tell me about these people's strength. Nie Tian couldn't sense the existence of the people following him, but with Gu Yi around, things were much easier. Tang Yu and the others had been following Nie Tian in secret, thinking that they had concealed their auras perfectly. However, they hadn't expected that this ordinary-looking old man by Nie Tian's side was actually a freak with a spiritual power as high as level 65. With Gu Yi's current spiritual perception, within a 5-kilometer radius around him, he would be able to see even the slightest movement in the grass. Nie Tian's spiritual power was only at level 41, and his perception range was only about 1 kilometer or so. Stinking brat. You're using I as a sensing spirit stone. Gu Yi scolded exasperatedly, but still said, Apart from that assassin, there's also a 9th level Wanxiang martial artist, and a group of 4 people. 1 is at the first level of the Wanxiang realm, 2 are at the 7th level, and 1 is at the 9th level. Wow, what a terrifying lineup. Even I'm a little scared. And yet Tian snickered, guessing who these people should be. He was so angry that his old face twitched, and he said in his heart, "Is this a sign of fear? I can see that you're over the moon." Actually, to be honest, He was more or less a little nervous right now, worried that Tian wouldn't be able to deal with these little tails. If He had known that Tian still had this trick of luring the snake out of its hole, he would have brought Tong Fu out to deal with these annoying little tails first. But it was too late to say anything now. He only had the strength of the 9th level of Origin Spirit, which was just a little stronger than ordinary Wanxiang martial artists. The rest could only depend on Tian. Chapter 142. Awu. In a dark valley in the Tyrant Cloud mountain range, a deep, mournful howl of a wolf broke the silence of the evening. Within the valley, within the thorny bushes, dozens of muscular black wolves poked their heads out, their cold fangs emanating a dangerous aura. A few hundred meters outside the valley, an old man and a young man calmly walked over. It was Yi and Tian. "Old Gu, do we need to pass through the valley in front of us to enter the burial cloud abyss?" Tian asked calmly, giving Yi a strange look. "Stinking brat, what are you up to this time?" Yi looked at Tian warily, then suddenly said, "Don't mess around. There are dozens of wolverines in the valley up ahead, and they are not to be trifled with." Wolverines were 3rd-rank spirit beasts, and their power was comparable to a Wanxiang warrior. In addition, wolverines excelled in group cooperation. Dozens of them together were enough to fight a high-level Wanxiang warrior. Tian chuckled. "Old Gu, our little tails are still following us, right? They've been following us for an entire day, and we can't let them stay idle. Let's let these wolverines test their power." After speaking, Tian walked straight into the valley. Yi broke out in a cold sweat and shouted, "Stinking brat, you really want to get I killed?" Although he cursed, Yi still followed. His battle ability was far below Tian's, and it was safer for him to follow Tian. After entering the valley, Yi hid behind Tian, feeling the cold wind blowing around him, making him shiver. In the darkness, the occasional flash of the wolf's eyes gave him goosebumps. Tian, on the other hand, looked calm and relaxed, as if he wasn't nervous at all. "Stinking brat, don't joke with I. This bag of old bones of mine really can't take the torment." Yi muttered. His heart was in his throat. "Old Gu, retract your aura and wait for the little tails to come," Tian said softly with a smile. At this moment, the wolf eyes in the surroundings revealed their true forms. Each of them was about 3 meters long, and their entire bodies were pitch black, as if they were made of steel. Wolverines were relatively small among rank 3 spirit beasts, but their speed and defense were among the best among rank 3 spirit beasts. Now that Tian and Yi were surrounded by dozens of wolverines, if the 2 of them were ordinary essence spirit martial artists, they would have instantly turned into a pile of wreckage, and it was estimated that not even a few bones would be left. Yi was on full alert, ready to strike at any moment. These beasts in front of him were not to be trifled with. Not only that, their intelligence was not weak, and they were extremely cunning. "Calm down, old Gu," Tian said calmly, as if he had a card up his sleeve. Yi was so anxious that even his beard became thinner, as he really could not understand what medicine Tian was selling in his gourd. "Oh, just when the wolverines were about to make a move, Tian let out a long howl towards the sky. The howl was very similar to the wolf howl from before, but it was even more resounding and impassioned, faintly containing the aura of a king. "Woo, woo, woo." When the wolverines heard Tian's voice, their triangular ears trembled a few times, and soon after, they let out deep sounds. Then, in the next moment, an inconceivable scene happened. The dozens of wolverines all lowered their heads, as if they were paying their respects to Tian. Yi was shocked to the point of being dumbstruck by the scene in front of him. But soon after, he came to an understanding and laughed out loud. "Brother Nya, actually know the spirit controller technique? Could it be that you're also a spirit controller? Spiritualist, a person who tames spirit beasts, is a profession that is even rarer than alchemist, blacksmith, and spirit formation master. However, spiritualist has a higher requirement toward the martial artist's innate talent. Other than having astonishing mental power, one also needs to have the innate talent to communicate with spirit beasts. Tian wasn't a spiritualist, but in his previous life, there was a huge wolf army under his command, and thus, he was very familiar with spirit beasts like giant wolves. And the Wolverines were the distant descendants of the giant wolves, and they inherited the bloodline of the giant wolves. Tian knew that the method of communication between the giant wolves was very unique. The Wolf Emperor would use a unique frequency to give orders to the wolf pack. Out of curiosity, Tian specially studied the Wolf Emperor's unique frequency, and he accidentally deciphered the Wolf Emperor's unique frequency. That was why he was able to emit a unique frequency of sound, causing the Wolverines to mistakenly think that he was the Wolf Emperor. Right now, in the eyes of the Wolverines, Tian was the Wolf Emperor. Wolves were a very unique species. They were one of the few spirit beasts that lived in groups, and within the group, there was a very strict hierarchy. The Wolf Emperor had absolute authority over the entire wolf pack, and the wolf pack would never go against the Wolf Emperor's orders. Tian didn't answer Guyi's question. Instead, he let out another wolf howl, and the wolf pack dispersed, disappearing into the thorny bushes. Tian smiled faintly at Guyi and said, "Old Gu, let's go. Just wait for a good show." The two walked out of the valley, came to a high ground, and hid in the bushes. A moment later, 4 figures appeared in the valley. Tian saw the 4 people from afar, and he smiled coldly in his heart. "Lan Binji, I didn't expect you to come in person. And Shang Mingyu, I didn't kill you last time, but now that you've come to me, don't blame me." Among the 4 people, Tian only recognized 2, Lan Binji and Shang Mingyu. Lan Binji appeared in person this time, and he had made up his mind to settle things with Tian. Between him and Tian, only one could walk out of Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range. As for the other 2, Tian didn't know them. The other 2 were from the Qin clan, Qin Hongtian and Qin Yulong. Qin Hongtian was Qin Yetian's younger brother, and also Qin Fen's father. Qin Fen died in the hands of Tian, and this time, he took the initiative to come and kill Tian, wanting to personally avenge his son's death. Qin Yulong was Qin Yuhu's elder brother, and he was the one who kidnapped Nye Yuro. Tang Yu didn't come with these 4 people and was acting alone. There was also a tracker at the 9th level of the All-Creation Realm who didn't show up. "Your Highness, something seems wrong." Qin Hongtian was the strongest among the 4 and was already at the 9th level of the All-Creation Realm. He felt that the surrounding atmosphere wasn't right, and he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. "Woo!" Before he even finished speaking, a wave of wolf howls came out from the surrounding bushes, and soon after, tens of black wolves scuttled out from the bushes. The eerie eyes of the wolves released a tyrannical glint, wanting to tear the human in front of them into pieces. "Be careful. Protect your highness." Qin Yulong roared, and the thorny vine primordial spirit appeared. Dozens of wolverines jumped together and attacked the 4 people. Among the 4 people, Qin Hongtian was the strongest, and Lan Binji was the weakest. If Qin Hongtian and the others didn't take care of Lan Binji, they would have no problem protecting themselves. But if they wanted to protect Lan Binji, it would be a little difficult. "Awoo!" A wolverine jumped in the air, and it bit Qin Yulong's thorny vine primordial spirit and ruthlessly tore it, and actually tore a piece of the vine primordial spirit. A horrifying wound appeared on Qin Yulong's arm, and he was in so much pain that he howled like a pig being slaughtered. Lan Binji hid in the middle of the 3 people, and her face was pale. She was almost scared out of her wits. Chapter 143. Gu Yi secretly glanced at Tian, suddenly feeling that the youth in front of him was like a ball of mystery. The more he wanted to see clearly, the more he couldn't. This kid has too many tricks up his sleeves. Luckily, this old man is wise, and did not become his enemy. Gu Yi laughed in his heart, secretly praising himself. However, just as Tian and Gu Yi were happily enjoying the bloody battle in the valley, a black figure was slowly approaching them. Thousands of meters away, a huge black figure was sprinting in the night, without a sound, like a ghost in the night, merging with the night. This figure was sprinting towards the direction of the valley and was obviously rushing towards Tian. In the blink of an eye, the sprinting figure had already arrived at a position less than 100 meters away from Tian and Gu Yi. The figure suddenly stopped at this moment. Its huge body was hidden in the tall bushes and began to secretly approach Tian and Gu Yi step by step. When it was less than 20 meters away from Tian, the latter finally sensed danger. Killing intent. Almost in an instant, Tian suddenly felt a cold, killing intent attack from behind, and his face immediately changed. In the next moment, a mournful wolf howl cut through the silence of the night sky, and in the air, a 5-meter huge figure attacked like lightning. Its 2 front claws seemed to be made of steel. Under the moonlight, it was suffused with a cold light, causing people to tremble. F***CK. Gu Yi suddenly turned his head, seeing the huge claws piercing towards him. He was so scared that his throat became sharp. At this critical moment, Tian was calm. The sword Absolute Heaven Slash directly pierced out. The sword light spread out, illuminating half of the night sky. Dang! The sword Absolute Heaven Slash pierced the steel claws of the huge wolf and actually produced the sound of metal colliding with stone. Tian felt a huge force coming from his arm, almost shaking his long sword out of his hand. Retreating, Tian rolled on the ground, in an extremely sorry state, but dodged the fatal blow of the huge wolf. Gu Yi quivered. Luckily, Tian's reaction was fast enough. Otherwise, the two of them would have lost a layer of skin, even if they did not die. At this moment, the two of them finally had a chance to take a good look at the creature that had attacked them. It was a giant wolf with a body length of more than 5 meters. Its entire body was covered in shiny black fur, and its triangular head was like an iron spine. 2 fangs were exposed outside its giant mouth, giving off a very threatening aura. Fuck, this is the real adamantine emperor. Tian swallowed a mouthful of saliva and cursed. The spirit beast in front of him was the adamantine wolf emperor. The Vajra wolf was a rank 3 spirit beast, while the Vajra wolf emperor's strength was close to that of a rank 4 spirit beast. It possessed the battle prowess of a 9th level all-creation realm martial artist. Stinking brat. It must be your wolf howl that attracted the wolf emperor. Gu Yi unhappily glanced at Tian and said, unhappily. That's right. The wolf emperor had been attracted by Tian's howl. Woo! The wolf emperor bared its fangs, and saliva flowed out of its mouth as it let out a deep roar. Its crimson-red eyes stared fixedly at Tian, seemingly saying, were you the one who pretended to be this wolf emperor just now? The Wolverine Emperor's intelligence was very high. Otherwise, it wouldn't have launched a sneak attack on Tian just now. It knew that the person who pretended to be it was Tian, so it locked onto Tian as its first target. Gu Yi keenly sensed that the Wolf Emperor didn't seem to be interested in him. He couldn't help but chuckle and said, little brat Tian, you're the one who caused this trouble. You deal with it yourself. Don't worry, Elder Gu will just watch from the side. Tian faintly smiled. It's time to let Gu Yi know his true battle prowess. Little wolf cub, do you think that I'm afraid of you just because you're big? Tian chuckled and circulated all the origin energy in his body to the extreme. A dazzling sword light gushed out from the sword Absolute Heaven Slash. The Wolf Emperor sensed a trace of threat and subconsciously took a step back. Night toppling sword. In just an instant, Tian raised his hand and attacked. A huge sword light that was 5 meters long suddenly blasted out, forcing the Wolf Emperor to continuously retreat. It's Tian. In the valley, a sharp cry came out. Shang Mingyu sensed a familiar sword energy. He raised his head and saw the battle between Tian and the Wolf Emperor. At this moment, The valley was already dyed red with blood. There were more than 10 Wolverines' corpses lying on the ground. The remaining Wolverines were already in a killing frenzy. Qin Hongtian, Shang Mingyu, and Qin Yulong were all injured and looked battered and exhausted. On the other hand, Lan Binji, who was protected by the three of them, was still unharmed. It really is Nye Tian. This valley is a trap that he's set for us. Lan Binji raised his head and saw Nye Tian. He immediately understood what was going on. He gritted his teeth so hard that they were about to break. Qin Hongtian and Qin Yulong were busy dealing with the Wolverines and didn't even have the time to look at him. Nye Tian, on the other hand, took a break and laughed loudly. Lan Binji, since you came all the way here, how can I not give you a small gift? If not, wouldn't I be lacking in hospitality? Ha! In the silent night sky, Nye Tian's crazy laughter sounded so ear-piercing and maddening. Lan Binji's face was gloomy. The veins on his handsome face were popping out. His whole body was like a ball of fire. Nye Tian, if I don't kill you, I swear I'm not a human. Lan Binji roared towards the sky. His hoarse voice sounded, showing how angry he was. Gu Yi heard the conversation between the two and asked, "Don't tell me that the kid in the valley is from the Blue Cloud royal family?" Nye Tian fought with the Wolf Emperor and laughed crazily. What bullsh asterisk T royal family? He's just a mad dog that's looking for death. Nye Tian never put the Blue Cloud royal family in his eyes, let alone Lan Binji. Even if Lan Binji didn't come looking for him, he would definitely go looking for him. Ever since Lan Binji laid his hands on Nye Yuro, he was destined to be a dead man. Gui could only smile speechlessly at Nye Tian's words. He was a pinnacle alchemist in the mini-summer world, and naturally, he wouldn't put a small character like Lan Binji in his eyes. If Lan Binji died, then so be it. It was no different from the death of a dog. Roar! When the Wolf Emperor saw that Nye Tian was still busy talking nonsense while fighting with him, he couldn't help but fly into a rage. The Wolf Emperor let out a roar, and its huge steel claws swept across the sky. Several sharp auras struck towards Nye Tian's neck. War God's heavenly slash. Nye Tian chuckled. Instead of retreating, he attacked with his sword. Buzz! In an instant, all 10 of Yi Qin's energy meridians were operated to the extreme. Elemental energy and the power of the stars continuously surged into the sword, causing the sword Absolute Heaven Slash to let out an intense sword cry. The sword Absolute Heaven Slash released a dazzling sword light, and the sharp sword energy spread out crazily. Wherever the sword light passed, the air would become dense, as if there was a blazing heat wave flowing past. The Wolf Emperor could feel the sharpness of the sword energy and actually didn't dare to clash head-on with Nye Tian. The moment it came into contact with the heat wave, it subconsciously retreated. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a figure suddenly sprang out from Nye Tian's shoulder and leaped onto the Wolf Emperor's huge head. The little Pai Shio leaped onto the Wolf Emperor's head, and its chubby little claws suddenly clawed down fiercely, directly piercing through the Wolf Emperor's head. Crack, crack, crack! In the next moment, a thin layer of ice formed on the Wolf Emperor's body, and its retreating body suddenly stopped. It was just a momentary pause, but Nye Tian had already grasped the perfect opportunity. Chapter 144. The Wolf Emperor fell to the ground, its huge body trembling a few times before it lost all signs of life. What a terrifying sword chi! Gu Yi, who was at the side, was simply stupefied. Originally, he had planned to give Nye Tian and the Wolf Emperor a final blow at the critical moment of the life and death battle. Who would have thought that Nye Tian would actually end the battle so quickly? Gu Yi's mental energy was as high as rank 65, and he could sense the terrifying aura in Nye Tian's sword chi. He had lived for more than 200 years and had seen countless swordsmen, but none of them could compare to Nye Tian in terms of sword chi. Although Nye Tian had not formed the sword heart yet, the power of his sword chi alone was comparable to that of a sword heart swordsman. The black and white fat bear on Nye Tian's shoulder was not simple either. It had pierced through the Wolf Emperor's head with a casual claw. This power was simply too shocking. One should know that the Wolf Emperor was a spirit beast known for its defense. Even some rank 4 spirit beasts would find it difficult to break through the Wolf Emperor's defense. The strangest thing was that the little fellow had frozen the Wolf Emperor. Even Gu-Yi felt threatened by its icy aura. At first, Gu-Yi thought that Bab was just a spirit pet raised by Nyetian. After all, it was very common for the sons of big families to raise cute spirit pets in order to flirt with girls and show off. Only then did Gu-Yi realize that this seemingly harmless fat bear was definitely not a spirit pet, but an extremely terrifying character. "Awoo!" Bab let out a strange cry, and its fat body suddenly burrowed into the Wolf Emperor's head. "Awoo, awoo!" When it crawled out again, it was holding a spirit core the size of a fist in its arms. It clumsily ran to Nyetian and let out a crisp cry, as if asking for credit from Nyetian. Nyetian took the spirit core from Bab and patted its furry little head. The little fellow leaped happily into Nyetian's arms and fell asleep. "Brother Nya, what kind of spirit beast is this little fellow? Why is it so powerful?" Gu-Yi walked over and laughed. "I can't say." Nyetian shook his head and smiled, then put the spirit core into his spatial ring. Bab was a Pishio, an ancient spirit beast that was even more terrifying than a rank 9 spirit beast. Of course, Nyetian would not reveal this information to Gu-Yi. "If you don't want to say, I don of it. I don't want to know." Gu-Yi of spirit beast. Nyetian was also deeply shocked by Bab's strength. If it wasn't for Bab, it would have taken a lot of effort to kill the Wolf Emperor. After taking care of the Emperor Wolverine, Nyetian glanced at the valley. Qin Hongtian and the others were still fighting with the Wolverines. However, Qin Hongtian's side had already gained the upper hand. There were only a few Wolverines left, and there were 30 to 40 Wolverines' corpses on the ground. "Lon Binji, you guys have fun. I will go first." Nyetian nodded, laughed, and shouted. Nyetian nodded, laughed heartily, and called out, "Lon Binji, take your time. I'll be going now." "Lon Binji, you guys have fun. I will go first." Nyetian nodded, laughed, and shouted. In the valley, Lon Binji and the others gnashed their teeth in hatred, but they could do nothing but watch Nyetian leave. Nyetian did not want to waste time on Lon Binji and the others. Otherwise, he would have killed all 4 of them in the valley. But the process would not be easy. Nyetian estimated that he would have to use all of his star souls. The lives of Lon Binji and the others were not worth so many star souls, so Nyetian let them jump around for a few more days. Not long after Nyetian and Gu-Yi disappeared, 2 figures appeared outside the valley. The 2 of them had been following Nyetian for a whole day, yet they hadn't shown up yet. They didn't know that Nyetian had long since known about their existence. Furthermore, the 2 of them had shown up in different locations. Clearly, they weren't together. One of them was hidden in a black robe. Her body was petite, and one could tell with a glance that she was a female. She was the female assassin of the Bloodbat sect, Tang Yuyu. The other person was wearing a strange green mask. Staring at the direction Nyetian disappeared, she seemed to have thought of something and mumbled, "Could it be that they're going to the forbidden area of the Tyrant Cloud mountain range, the Burial Cloud Abyss?" At the same time, 2 figures moved at the same time, chasing after Nyetian. After running for dozens of miles in the mountain range, Nyetian and Gu-Yi arrived at a low-lying area. The basin had a radius of tens of thousands of meters, and the top was shrouded in turbid fog, making it difficult to see how deep the abyss was. The air was filled with the smell of blood, making people feel as though there were millions of corpses buried in the abyss. What a powerful, baleful aura. Although Nyetian was standing outside the abyss, the baleful aura inside the abyss hit him in the face, and he actually had a feeling of shortness of breath. Gu-Yi chuckled and said, "Younger brother Nya, this basin below us is where the Burial Cloud Abyss is located. But we're only at the outermost region right now. If we reach the center region of the Burial Cloud Abyss, the baleful aura there will be called formidable." What a powerful restriction. Nyetian frowned slightly, sensing that the abyss in front of him was enveloped by a powerful restriction power. Not only was this restriction power powerful, but it was also very concealed. It was very hard for ordinary people to discover the existence of the restriction. No wonder Gu was willing to agree to Nietion's almost exaggerated conditions. It turned out that the burial cloud abyss was even more dangerous than Nietion imagined. This restriction in front of him was at least equivalent to a Tier 7 spiritual array. The goal of setting it up back then should be in order to protect the burial cloud abyss and not let later generations of martial artists disturb the peace of the dead soldiers. Nietion also understood at this time why the Doomsday Flame would hide in this place. The Doomsday Flame was nurtured from the heart of Doomsday Volcano's magma, absorbing 10,000 years of baleful earth energy. What liked the most was the power with baleful aura. The baleful aura that enveloped the burial cloud abyss was precisely the Doomsday Flame's favorite. Gu glanced at Nietion, seemingly somewhat embarrassed, and said, "The burial cloud abyss is the Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range's forbidden land. Rumors say that countless departed spirits are buried here. It's said that the Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range was once the battlefield of the great war of gods and demons in the ancient era. The burial cloud abyss is a mass grave. Buried inside are countless ancient powerful martial artists who perished. The departed spirits of the martial artists did not disperse for a long time. A horrifying and gloomy aura enveloped the burial cloud abyss for 10,000 years. Hence, the burial cloud abyss is also extremely heavy with baleful aura even during the day, unable to see the light of day. There were once countless people who entered the burial cloud abyss, wanting to get to the bottom of it. But none of the people who went in could return. It just added more departed spirits to the burial cloud abyss. After that, the burial cloud abyss became the Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range's forbidden land. No one is allowed to enter. No one is allowed to enter." Nietion gave a dry laugh and said, "Didn't you, this old fellow, go in? Furthermore, you came out alive." Cough, cough. Gu coughed dryly and said, "I only entered the periphery of the burial cloud abyss back then. As for what's inside, I'm not sure either." Chapter 145. Nietion looked at the burial cloud abyss, took a deep breath, and said, "Let's go in." Since they were already here and the demonic Doomsday Flame was close at hand, Nietion wouldn't give up at this time, no matter how dangerous the burial cloud abyss was. "All right," Gu agreed and walked in front. He had entered the abyss once, after all. Nietion followed closely. Not long after the two entered the basin, Tang Yu and another figure appeared. The two figures were a few hundred meters apart, but they had already sensed each other's presence. Tang Yu looked at the other person cold, but the other person actually smiled in a friendly manner and made a gesture of invitation. Tang Yu didn't say anything and quietly looked at the strange place in front of him. Without much hesitation, he entered directly. The other figure didn't move until Tang Yu's aura completely disappeared, hesitating whether to enter or not. Burial Cloud Abyss, the first forbidden area of Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range. For thousands of years, countless people have died in the abyss. Nietion, Nietion, why do you want to go to such a dangerous place? The person murmured to himself and finally made up his mind and stepped in. The two didn't notice the existence of the Burial Cloud Abyss's restriction. Not long after, Lan Binji and the others also appeared. "Your Highness!" Qin Yulong felt the murderous aura rushing towards him and suddenly felt suffocated. He exclaimed and looked at Lan Binji, saying, "Nietion entered the Burial Cloud Abyss. What should we do?" "Enter." Lan Binji almost squeezed the word out of his teeth. Qin Tian stepped forward and stopped Lan Binji, persuading, "Your Highness, the Burial Cloud Abyss is the first forbidden area of Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range. It is said that there are countless ghosts and spirits inside, and it is unpredictable. Your Highness, please be careful. I guess that Nietion will have a hard time coming out alive after entering the abyss. Why don't we wait here and see what happens?" "Yes." Qin Yulong also persuaded. "The Bloodbat sect assassins have already entered. This time, they will definitely kill Nietion. Your Highness, let's go back." Of course, Qin Hongtian and Qin Yulong wanted to kill Nie Tian, but they were more afraid of dying in the burial cloud abyss. They did not want to die with Nie Tian. Are you afraid? Lan Bing's eyes flashed with a fierce light as she asked in a cold tone. This subordinate wouldn't dare. I'm just thinking for your highness' sake. Your highness is priceless. It's not worth risking your life for a mere Nie Tian. Qin Hongtian said respectfully. Cowardly rat. Before Lan Bingji could speak, Shang Mingyu looked at Qin Hongtian and Qin Yulong with disdain, then stepped into the abyss. When Lan Bingji saw Shang Mingyu enter, he immediately said, "This prince must see Nie Tian's corpse with my own eyes. If you're afraid of death, you can stay here." With that, Lan Bingji entered the abyss as well. Qin Hongtian and Qin Yulong looked at each other. In the end, they could only sigh and follow them in. They had to ensure Lan Bingji's safety. If anything were to happen to him, the Empress would never let them off. Nie Tian followed Gu Yi into the burial cloud abyss. The murderous aura filled the air, giving people a strong sense of oppression. If it was a martial artist below the origin spirit realm, they might even find it hard to breathe. Nie Tian and Gu Yi walked all the way into the burial cloud abyss. The burial cloud abyss had a radius of tens of thousands of meters. The demonic fire, Doomsday Flame, should be hiding in the center of the abyss. The closer they got to the center of the abyss, the more intense the murderous aura that Nie Tian felt. It almost made him breathless. Moreover, Nie Tian also felt that there were countless runes in the surrounding space. The power of the formation was flowing slowly, like a sleeping beast. If they were to be awakened accidentally, they would immediately burst out with the strongest killing intent. It's indeed the aura of a forbidden formation. This is just the power of the formation that is emitted from the forbidden formation. It is already so powerful. It seems that the forbidden formation that protects the burial cloud abyss is very powerful. It is almost beyond my imagination. Nie Tian muttered in surprise. Gu Yi nodded and said, "The forbidden formation of the burial cloud abyss has existed for tens of thousands of years. After the corrosion of time, the power of the formation has weakened a lot. Even though it is an incomplete forbidden formation, it still has the power of a rank 7 spiritual formation. It requires at least a rank 7 spiritual formation master to break it." Spiritual formations were divided into rank 1 to rank 9 spiritual formations according to the strength of the formation. Spiritual formation master was an occupation that was even rarer than alchemists and blacksmiths. There weren't many rank 7 spiritual formation masters in the heaven realm, let alone the mini Sumeru world. In his previous life, other than martial arts, sword, and alchemy, Nie Tian had also cultivated an alchemy and spiritual formation. However, he was only a rank 7 spiritual formation master at his peak. Now, he probably couldn't even be considered as a rank 2 spiritual formation master. The two of them continued to walk forward. The short distance of tens of thousands of meters seemed extremely long. No one knew what was beneath their feet. In this kind of dangerous and unpredictable place, if they were not careful, they could fall into an abyss of eternal damnation. Nie Tian, those little tails of yours have also followed us. It seems that their hatred for you is really deep. They even dared to enter the burial cloud abyss. Gu Yi sensed that there were people rushing over from behind and transmitted his voice to Nie Tian. "Oomph." Nie Tianling laughed coldly and said, "They didn't take the road to heaven, but they barged into the door to hell. This time, this young master will make them die without leaving even their bones." Lan Bingji and the rest did not even notice the existence of the burial cloud abyss and foolishly followed them in. They wouldn't even know how they died later. "Be careful." Just as Nie Tian's voice fell, Gu Yi's face changed and he cried out in alarm. Boom! Suddenly, a few hundred meters in front of them, the ground was lifted up and countless black things drilled out from the ground. Nie Tian's face changed as he saw countless armored skeletons drilling out from the ground. What surprised him the most was that within the shriveled bodies of the armored skeletons, white flames were faintly flowing. What the hell is this? Seeing the armored skeletons that appeared in front of him, Gu Yi cried out in alarm. his beard standing up straight. Nye Tian was surprisingly calm. He carefully sensed the aura of the skeletons in front of him and said with a slight frown, "The white flames in the armored skeletons are the aura of the Doomsday Flame. I guess that they are warriors that died in the ancient times and were controlled by the Doomsday Flame, becoming skeleton puppets." Nye Tian's voice was very calm, which made Gu Yi calm down a lot. He said in horror, "It really is the aura of the Doomsday Flame. The tyrannical Cloud Mountain Range was once the battlefield of the ancient gods and devils, and the burial Cloud Abyss was a mass grave. These armored skeletons were all warriors that died in the ancient times. After death, the baleful aura did not dissipate and was buried underground. The Doomsday Flame absorbed the baleful aura of the burial Cloud Abyss and summoned these fallen warriors from underground, turning them into skeleton puppets." Nye Tian glanced at the skeleton puppets that appeared in front of him. There were at least a few thousand of them, and the ground was still being lifted up as more skeleton puppets were being created. How can the baleful aura of the Doomsday Flame be so strong to actually be able to control so many puppets at the same time? Nye Tian sucked in a breath of cold air, and a nervous expression appeared on his face. Chapter 146. Kill. At the outer perimeter of Burial Cloud Abyss, deafening sounds of killing rang out in an instant, even mixed with the sound of battle horns. Countless skeleton puppets brandished their sabers and spears as they charged over, like a surging wave of skeletons, erupting with a bone-piercing chill that made one despair. "Bratnya, what should we do?" Seeing the situation, Gu Yi was so frightened that his voice changed, the bones in his entire body starting to shiver. "Old man Gu, didn't you say that you came in before? Now you're asking me what to do." Nye Tian was also speechless. This Gu Yi usually looked calm and collected, who knew that he would be so out of his wits at the critical moment. Gu Yi couldn't care less about the awkwardness as he said awkwardly, "I did come in before, but I really didn't encounter these skeleton puppets." "Kill. Kill a path of blood," Nye Tian roared. There was no reason to retreat now, so he could only charge forward. He had already sensed that although there were many skeleton puppets, their battle prowess wasn't strong, only at the first level of the origin spirit realm at most. "Old man Gu, follow behind me." Nye Tian knew that Gu Yi's battle prowess wasn't strong, so he instructed. Immediately, sword absolute heaven slash flashed as he slashed over. A sword light several meters long spread out. The sword light shone brightly as sword chi rumbled. Instantly, like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, the skeleton puppets in front of Nye Tian were all dispersed, turning into a pile of bones. "Bratnya, these skeleton puppets aren't so weak. If you just kill your way through, we'll definitely be able to reach the center of the abyss safely." Seeing the situation, Gu Yi chuckled, showing great confidence in Nye Tian. "Old man Gu, you're underestimating these skeletons," Nye Tian said in a low voice. "These skeleton puppets are warriors who died in the ancient battlefield and are now being controlled by the Doomsday Flame using its ominous aura. Their battle prowess isn't strong, but their strongest point is that their ominous aura is very strong, so we must not let them get close. If they come into contact with the ominous aura of the Doomsday Flame, it'll be bad." As Nye Tian spoke, he brandished his absolute heaven/sword and dashed tens of meters away. He had a feeling that the power of the stars had a restraining effect on these skeletons, which was why the power of the sword just now was so great. At the same time, a kilometer behind Nye Tian, Tang Yuyu and the mysterious black-clothed man were also attacked by the skeleton puppets. "What the hell is that?" Tang Yuyu saw that the thing in front of her was just a set of armor. Inside the armor was a skeleton, and there were even pale flames flowing within it. This scene was very strange, and even she felt a bone-piercing chill. Crow Featherblade. Tang Yuyu did not dare to be careless. A pile of dragon crow wings appeared on his back. With a flap of the wings, a black feather blade tore through the air, and all the skeleton puppets within 100 meters were reduced to bones. However, at the same time, the surrounding skeleton puppets surrounded them. Tang Yuyu immediately felt a soaring, killing intent pressing down on her, almost suffocating her. Only then did Tang Yuyu feel the existence of the restriction power, which made it impossible for her to use her full strength. Courting death. With a shout, 9 pairs of dragon crow wings appeared on Tang Yuyu's back. Her body shot up into the sky, and all the skeleton puppets within a radius of tens of meters fell like withered grass in the wind. Her original spirit was a 9-winged dragon crow, and she could easily fly into the sky. Compared to the others, she had an absolute geographical advantage. On the other side, the mysterious black-clothed man was also fighting hard with the skeleton puppets. He was not weak, and seemed to be no weaker than Tang Yuyu. But what was even more strange was that this person did not seem to be affected by the restriction power of the abyss. Although the skeleton puppets were as numerous as ants, they could not get within 5 meters of the black-clothed man. And behind Tang Yuyu and the mysterious black-clothed man, Lan Binji and the others were in the same situation. Damn it, were these ghost skeletons? Why are there so many of them all of a sudden? Qin Yulong was the most annoyed, and he cursed while fighting with all his might. The few of them had just fought with dozens of wolverines, and all of them were injured. At this moment, it was a little difficult to deal with the countless skeleton puppets. All of you are trash. I will kill you all. Lan Binji, on the other hand, was fighting with all his might. He roared angrily, venting all his anger towards Nia Tian on the skeleton puppets. Lan Binji was the weakest among them, and so he felt the least pressure from the restriction power of the abyss. Lan Binji's Blackwater mystical ice origin spirit appeared, and a ball of turbid liquid flowed around it. The surrounding skeleton puppets fell to the ground like mud being washed away by a flood. At the same time, the baleful aura within the skeleton puppets was absorbed by the Blackwater mystical ice origin spirit, and it surged into Lan Binji's body. What a powerful force! However, the baleful aura did not cause Lan Binji any harm. Instead, he felt as if his strength had increased. This was the first time Lan Binji had experienced the benefits of the baleful aura, and he could not stop it. His Blackwater mystical ice origin spirit circulated rapidly, and the baleful aura within the surrounding skeleton puppets all surged over. Lan Binji immediately became a vortex that absorbed the baleful aura. Wanxiang 2nd tier, Wanxiang 3rd tier, Wanxiang 4th tier. As the baleful aura surged into his body, Lan Binji felt that his strength was increasing at an unbelievable speed. Qin Hongtian and the others also felt the shocking changes in Lan Binji's body, and they all gasped. If Lan Binji continued to absorb the baleful aura, his strength would be heaven-defying. Thinking of this, the few of them looked at each other, and suddenly they felt a bone-chilling cold in their hearts. The Blackwater mystical ice origin spirit was originally of the ice attribute, and it contained the power of extreme een and extreme cold, which was similar to the attribute of the baleful aura in the burial cloud abyss. It was not strange for it to be able to absorb the baleful aura. However, the speed at which Lan Binji's strength was increasing was too fast, and it did not make sense at all. Shang Mingyu frowned and looked at Lan Binji. He had a bad premonition, as if something bad was going to happen soon. On the other side, Nie Tian was killing his way through. Sword Absolute Heaven Slash. The huge sword light on the tip of the sword slashed down forcefully, and the sword aura surged. The skeleton puppets in front of him all collapsed. Luckily, these skeleton puppets are very weak. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Nie Tian rejoiced inwardly. If these skeletal puppets were just a little bit stronger, he would have probably died here. Tens of thousands of skeleton puppets surged forward. Just this kind of momentum was enough to scare people. Bratnya, these skeleton puppets are easy to deal with, but what about the one above us? Gu Yi looked at the 9-winged dragon crow in the sky and said helplessly. Tang Yuyu stood high up in the sky, and her 9 pairs of black wings flapped continuously to maintain her balance. She looked down at Nie Tian and said in a cold voice, Nie Tian, we meet again. Nie Tian dispersed the skeleton puppets with a slash of his sword, and looked at Tang Yuyu and chuckled. It's better if we don't meet. Every time I see you, nothing good will come out of it. He was speechless. He did not expect Tian to still be in a mood to joke at this time. Tang Yuyu frowned and said coldly, "Your calmness has exceeded my expectations. I want to see how long you can last." As Tang Yuyu spoke, she looked into the distance and saw a group of skeleton puppets pouncing over. Even if these skeleton puppets did not have any combat strength, it was impossible to kill them all. Even if Tian had the ability to transcend the heavens, he would still be exhausted to death by these skeleton puppets. Rather than worrying about me, why don't you worry about yourself? Tian faintly smiled and pointed behind Tang Yuyu. Chapter 147. Tang Yuyu was slightly stunned. He immediately felt an extremely strong, baleful aura coming at him from behind. Turning around, he saw countless scarlet, flaming winged skeletons. These flaming skeletons looked similar to the skeleton puppets, but they were smaller in size. Instead of pale white flames, the flaming winged skeletons were burning with red flames. Behind the flaming winged skeletons, there was a pair of wings made of flames. Kill! Battle cries filled the sky. The flaming winged skeletons surged towards Tang Yuyu. They were bright red, like the sunset clouds falling from the sky. Tang Yuyu was quite surprised. His 9 pairs of black wings flapped violently. His speed was extremely fast, and he wanted to pull away from the flaming winged skeletons. However, the flaming winged skeletons were equally fast. They were like maggots in one's bones, and it was very hard to get rid of them. Tian looked at Tang Yuyu and suddenly thought of Tang 13. He muttered, "I wonder if Tang 13 managed to catch up to her that day." That day at the black market, Tang 13 left in a hurry. Although she didn't say what she was going to do, Tian could feel that Tang 13 and the female killer in front of him didn't have a simple relationship. It was even possible that Tang 13 entered the Bloodbath sect because of this female killer. The flaming winged skeletons weren't easy to deal with. They were even more powerful than the skeleton puppets on the ground. Although Tang Yuyu was powerful, he was suppressed by the abyss's restriction power. He could only be chased by the flaming winged skeletons. 300 billion sword shadows. Tian slashed out with his sword. Countless sword shadows formed a sword net, and the skeleton army within 10 meters was completely destroyed. However, Tian realized a serious problem. The skeleton puppets were still crawling out of the ground. Even if he couldn't kill all the skeleton puppets. Burial Cloud Abyss was once a mass grave in the ancient battlefield. Who knew how many martial artist souls were buried underground? Olgu, we can't go on like this. We have to find the doomsday flame that controls these skeleton puppets. Tian's voice turned serious. If he continued to fight with these reckless skeleton puppets, his essence force would be exhausted sooner or later. Originally, Tian had already awakened the power of the stars and activated the heaven-devouring soul. Previously, he had used the heaven-devouring soul to devour Qin Yetian's killing blow. However, the bodies of these skeletons were filled with earth-baleful energy. If he were to forcefully devour them, not only would Tian be unable to replenish his essence energy, he would even be injured by the earth-baleful energy. At this moment, he had to find the doomsday flame who was controlling the skeleton puppet. Otherwise, by the time his origin energy was exhausted, everything would be too late. How could it be that easy to find the doomsday flame? He was forced into a corner, and he could only join in the battle. Being surrounded and attacked by countless skeleton puppets, and having to guard against the baleful aura within the skeletons, he was already badly battered. Hold on for now. At this moment, Tian couldn't be bothered about anything else. He shouted, then stomped his feet on the ground and leaped high into the air. Tian leaped several meters into the air. Just as his body was about to land, a hua-la sound was heard as a pair of huge wings formed by countless sword shadows appeared on his back. Holy sh**t. When Gui saw this, he was immediately dumbstruck. He didn't expect that Tian actually had such a mystical martial skill. Among all the martial skills, flying-type martial skills were the hardest to master. Not only did it require a martial artist to have precise control over their own essence energy, it also required a certain understanding of space. Martial artists who were able to cultivate flying martial skills were all geniuses in the martial Tao. Furthermore, flying martial skills were extremely rare. Among martial skills of the same level, the price of flying martial skills were all around 10 times higher than ordinary martial skills. The flying martial skill that Nie Tian was currently using was one of the 3 intermediate forms of the Proud Sword art. Proud Sword Heavenly Wings. The Proud Sword Heavenly Wings was not only a flying martial skill, but it also had an extremely powerful destructive power. However, the current Nie Tian was too weak, and his Sword Dao realm was not high enough either. He could only use the Proud Sword Heavenly Wings as a flying martial skill, and it also consumed a large amount of essence energy. The Proud Sword Heavenly Wings flapped. Nie Tian rose several tens of meters into the air. Looking down, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. On the ground, it was practically all skeleton puppets, simply like a colony of ants. Nie Tian took a glance at Tang Yuyu, who was tangling with the flaming winged skeletons, and immediately cast his gaze to an even further place. Thousands of meters away from Nie Tian, a few strands of swimming flames were floating in the air. Found you. Nie Tian's heart stirred. Those few strands of flames were definitely the Doomsday Flames. But at this time, countless flaming winged skeletons approached. Nie Tian was instantly surrounded. The surrounding space of several hundred meters was all flaming winged skeletons. Crap, Nie Tian said in his heart. These flaming winged skeletons' battle strength is even stronger than the skeleton puppets, and I need to constantly expend essence energy in the air. My battle strength is much weaker. The flaming winged skeletons were much stronger than the skeleton puppets, and yet Tian's battle strength in the air was much weaker. Under such circumstances, it was extremely difficult to deal with so many flaming winged skeletons. Divine War Imperial Fist. Nie Tian naturally wouldn't sit and wait for death. With a punch, he forcefully opened up a path and pulled himself forward, wanting to break out of the encirclement. But there were too many flaming winged skeletons, and they formed a black mass, nearly forming a wall of skeletons. F***CK. In a fit of rage, Nie Tian cursed. Following that, he stabbed out with his sword again, breaking open a narrow crack. The flaming winged skeletons were very agile. Before Nie Tian could move, they blocked his path again. Nie Tian frowned, already considering whether or not he should use his astral soul. Earlier, Nie Tian had already sensed that the power of the stars had a suppressive effect on the skeleton puppets. Astral souls were formed from the power of the stars, so they should have a suppressive effect on the skeleton puppets. But to use such a powerful astral soul to kill these skeletons, no matter how he thought about it, it was stupid. Bang! At this moment, a piercingly cold aura swept over, scattering all the flaming winged skeletons in front of Nie Tian. After the flaming winged skeleton fell to the ground, red flames rose up and entered the bodies of the other skeletons. Are you courting death? Tang Yuyu's figure appeared, angrily rebuking Nie Tian. Just now, it was actually her who opened up a path for Nie Tian. Help me. Nie Tian glanced at Tang Yuyu, pointed to the flames in the distance, and said, "We have to destroy the demonic flames over there, or we will never be able to kill all these skeletons. Help me open up a path, or we will all die here." Tang Yuyu hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she said, "Nie Tian, I will definitely kill you." After saying this, Tang Yuyu's figure leaped up, and her 9 pairs of black wings suddenly exerted force. Like an electric drill, she forcefully opened up a path of blood. Tang Yuyu was still so ferocious under the pressure of the burial cloud abyss's restriction. It was enough to show how terrifying her strength was. "You're not stupid after all." Nie Tian chuckled and hurriedly followed behind Tang Yuyu. On the ground, Gui was barely able to deal with the unceasing onslaught of the skeleton puppets. Around him, there was a sea of skeletons. "Nie Tian, I hope you can succeed. Otherwise, I will have to use that move." He looked at the figures of Tian and Tang Yu as he spoke in his heart. For the sake of the doomsday flame, He had already prepared for several decades. Naturally, he had a very strong backup plan. Chapter 148. Rumble. Tang Yu opened the path in front. The 9 pairs of wings of the 9-winged dragon crow condensed together like an enormous sword, cutting through all the obstacles along the way. This lass's strength is indeed formidable. If not for using the Annihilation Earth Seal directly the last time, it probably wouldn't have been so easy to defeat her. Tian was behind Tang Yu, astonished by the latter's shocking combat strength. Under Tang Yu's tyrannical charge, the flame-winged skeleton army wailed like ghosts and howled like wolves, utterly defeated. Tian arrived at the central region of Burial Cloud Abyss very quickly. Those 2 balls of demonic fire floating in the air were already close at hand. Nearing the center of the abyss, Tian felt the baleful aura even more densely, almost materializing, making his breathing heavy. Burial Cloud Abyss is indeed worthy of being a pit of 10,000 people. The baleful aura is so heavy that it oppresses people until it's hard to breathe. The onrushing baleful aura made Tian involuntarily frown. Luckily, he had the power of stars supporting his body, and his martial body was strong enough. Otherwise, it would really be difficult for him to even walk right now. Ga. Right at this time, a strange laugh suddenly sounded out in the surroundings. The voice was shrill, very ear-piercing. What's that? Tang Yu was shocked in his heart. Turning around, his expression changed drastically. In midair, 2 balls of flames appeared. One was a pale white flame, the other was a scarlet-red flame. The 2 balls of flames spun a circle in the air and actually condensed into 2 human faces. They were very blurry. Only the eyes and mouth could be distinguished. Shaking up and down in the air, the scene was very strange. It's the Doomsday Flame. An astonished cry came out from the ground. It was actually Yi. He actually killed his way here too. Tian took a look at Yi and said in his heart, turns out that this old punk's combat strength is so formidable. I was worried for him previously. It was really unnecessary. Actually, Tian should have thought of it long ago. Although Yi only had 9th level origin spirit strength, he was once a tier 6 alchemy master after all. Even the same martial technique, he could also unleash even more terrifying power than ordinary martial artists. Worrying for this old punk was simply too unnecessary. Something's wrong. Why are there 2? Yi discovered something wrong the next instant and said in shock, wasn't there only white flames the last time? The last time Yi came here, he encountered the white flame ghost face and was even injured by this ghost face. Ga. The pale ghost face let out an ear-piercing laugh, as if he had also recognized Yi, and shouted, how interesting, it's actually you, old man. You escaped last time, but you won't be able to escape this time. Kaka. The Doomsday Flame you met last time is this guy. Tian had already noticed that something was amiss. He landed on the ground and asked He was also a little confused, as he nodded blankly. F***CK. Tian cursed angrily. Looking at the 2 flame faces in the air, one red and one white, he roared, they aren't the Doomsday Flame's main body at all. They're just 2 clones condensed by the Doomsday Flame. Tian had found it strange before. If Yi had encountered the true body of the Doomsday Flame, how could he have escaped? It turned out that he had only encountered clone. Tian had also made a mistake just now, thinking that these 2 flames were the main body of the Doomsday Flame. However, when he arrived in front of the 2 flames, he felt that although the 2 flames' killing intent was very heavy, it was far from the level of the Doomsday Flame's main body. The 13th Demon Fire on the Demon Fire list, if it was the main body, just that kind of killing intent would be very difficult to bear. Now that the few of them could still speak normally, it meant that these 2 flames were only the clones of the Doomsday Flame. Kaka, little guy, you have some knowledge to be able to see that we are not the main body of the Doomsday. The red ghost face spoke. Its voice was even more ear-piercing than the white ghost face. like steel rubbing against each other, and could even affect people's minds. Humph! Tian calmed down, sneered, and said, "If my guess is correct, the two of you should be two of the three clones of the Doomsday Flame, the White Flame and the Scarlet Flame, right?" Tian had done a lot of research on demon fires in his previous life, and he had some understanding of all kinds of demon fires. The complete state of the Doomsday Flame could split into three clones: the Purple Flame, the Scarlet Flame, and the White Flame. Among the three clones, the Purple Flame was the strongest, so the main body of the Doomsday Flame should be together with the Purple Flame. And the two flames in front of him were obviously the Scarlet Flame and the White Flame. Tian speculated that the flame-winged skeleton in the air was controlled by the Scarlet Flame, while the skeleton puppet on the ground was controlled by the White Flame. The flame-winged skeleton was obviously more powerful than the skeleton puppet, so the strength of the Scarlet Flame should be above the White Flame. How do you know? The Scarlet Flame and the White Flame let out a strange cry at the same time. The two black holes that looked like pupils suddenly expanded, showing their surprise. The three clones of the Doomsday Flame. This was the secret of the Doomsday Flame very few people knew. The youth in front of them actually knew this secret. How could the Scarlet Flame and the White Flame not be surprised? These are the two clones of the Doomsday Flame? He was also quite shocked. This was the first time he heard someone say this, and the person who said this was a youth. Who was this youth? Tian's knowledge and vision far exceeded Gu Yi's expectations. He suddenly had an illusion. In front of Tian, he was an idiot. Gu Yi had always thought that the White Flame that he saw last time was the main body of the Doomsday Flame. He did not expect it to be just a clone. A clone of the Doomsday Flame was already so heaven-defying. How abnormal the strength of the main body was. Tang Yuyu frowned as he listened. He had no idea what Tian was talking about. What Doomsday Flame? What three clones? What flame? To her, it was simply the language of a foreign dimension. However, no matter how stupid Tang Yuyu was, he could understand that the flame-winged skeleton and skeleton puppet that besiege him were caused by the two flames in front of him. After figuring this out, Tang Yuyu's gaze towards the two flames became cold. No matter what the hell these two flames were, they would still die if they offended her. And yet Tianling looked coldly at the Scarlet Flame and the White Flame and said coldly, "That's not all I know." Each of the three clones of the Doomsday Flame had an independent mind and could be said to be an independent entity, but at the same time, they were also controlled by the main body. However, it was precisely because of the independence of the three clones of the Doomsday Flame that the three clones could be fused separately. This undoubtedly greatly reduced the difficulty of fusing the Doomsday Flame. If he could get the Scarlet Flame or the White Flame, either one of them could suppress the 3,000 demon god seals in Jean de Bao's body. When Tian thought of this, he looked at the Scarlet Flame and the White Flame with a hint of greed in his eyes. "Little guy, you know too much. I can't let you leave here today." The Scarlet Flame and the White Flame looked at each other, and the flame face suddenly expanded, directly condensing a pair of flame wings that were several meters long. Chapter 149. Kill. At the periphery of the burial cloud abyss, the skeleton puppets went berserk. Their battle cries filled the entire valley. "Second uncle, I can't take it anymore." Qin Yulong was covered in blood. After fighting with the skeleton puppets for a long time, the killing intent had already invaded his body. Qin Yulong's body was swollen. There seemed to be something wriggling under his skin. It bulged up from time to time, looking very strange. "Yulong, hold on." Qin Hongtian roared. He struck out with his palm, scattering dozens of skeleton puppets. But in the next moment, the skeleton puppets gathered again. As the saying goes, ants can bite an elephant to death. The skeleton puppets were very weak, but there were too many of them. Moreover, the killing intent was too strong. After a long time, Qin Yulong and the others' elemental energy was exhausted. Naturally, they couldn't withstand the attack of the skeleton puppets. Qin Yulong's consciousness became blurred. Finally, he couldn't hold on any longer and fell to the ground. His eyes flickered with pain, despair, and deep unwillingness. "Damn it, Qin Hongtian roared and immediately rushed over to protect Qin Yulong, not letting the skeleton puppets get close to him. But Qin Yulong's aura gradually weakened. His eyes were filled with fear. After a while, his aura disappeared. Kill! At this time, the flaming skeletons and skeleton puppets rushed over at the same time, forcing Qin Hongtian to retreat. In the blink of an eye, Qin Yulong's body turned into ashes. Yulong! Qin Hongtian shouted in pain. His expression was extremely sad and desperate. If he knew that this would happen in the abyss, he wouldn't have followed them. Lan Binji could die however he wanted, but it was too late to say anything now. They could only continue to hold on until they couldn't hold on anymore and died under the skeleton puppet army. Just like Qin Yulong, not even his bones were left. On the other side, Shang Mingyu wasn't feeling good either. His elemental energy was almost exhausted, but the skeleton puppets were increasing. Awesome! At this time, Lan Binji was almost crazy. The Blackwater mysterious ice, primordial spirit had absorbed endless killing intent. His strength had skyrocketed to the shocking 9th level of the all-creation realm. Although he was under the pressure of the abyss restriction, Lan Binji enjoyed the surge in strength, and his elemental energy was constantly replenished. He was actually getting more and more excited. Your Highness, save me. Qin Hongtian hurriedly asked Lan Binji for help. Lan Binji turned around and glanced at Qin Hongtian. He gave a sinister smile and then ran forward with large strides. He did not care about the lives of Qin Hongtian and the others. Princess Binji! Qin Hongtian shouted in grief, but Lan Binji's figure was already far away. Originally, Qin Hongtian and Qin Yulong came here to protect Lan Binji. However, Lan Binji didn't care about their lives at all. In Lan Binji's eyes, they were worse than dogs. Just when Qin Hongtian had given up all hope, a strange scene happened. All the skeleton puppets suddenly fell to the ground, turning into a pile of bones. The flame-winged skeletons in the air also fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. In the sky, countless pale white flames and crimson flames floated and converged in the same direction. Tian looked up and sucked in a breath of cold air. Ardent scarlet flame and ardent white flame were currently absorbing the flames from the flame-winged skeletons and the skeleton puppets. They are retrieving their own energy. Gu immediately reacted and shouted in panic. Courting death. Tang Yuyu roared and attacked first. A black feather pierced through the air and attacked ardent scarlet flame's tongue. Puff! A light sound pierced through the air. The black feather pierced through ardent scarlet flame's tongue, but it did not cause any damage. Quack! Stupid! Ardent scarlet flame's flaming wings were already 10 meters long. After an ear-piercing scream, a pillar of fire shot up to the sky and attacked Tang Yuyu. Tang Yuyu's reaction was fast. She flapped her dragon crow wings and dodged the attack of the fire pillar. However, her body was hit by the heat wave, and her black robe was lifted up, revealing a delicate and beautiful face. Damn it! Tang Yuyu shouted. Her beautiful eyes flashed with murderous intent. Tian looked at Tang Yuyu and was slightly surprised by her beauty. At the same time, he saw the silver pendant on Tang Yuyu's neck and was stunned. Tian remembered that Tang 13 seemed to have a pendant that looked exactly the same. This undoubtedly meant that Tang Yuyu and Tang 13 must have an extraordinary relationship. However, at this time, Tian did not have time to think too much. He looked at Gu Yi and said, Old Gu, did you bring the sealing scrolls? Of course. Gu Yi chuckled, and 2 simple black scrolls appeared in his hands. Something like demonic fire could not be destroyed. It could only be fused or sealed. Generally speaking, when an alchemist fused a demonic fire, they would first seal the demonic fire, then slowly fuse it. Rank 5 sealing scrolls. Tian looked at the scroll in Gu Yi's hands, and his face turned pale. The sealing scroll in Gu Yi's hands was actually only rank 5. Tian could not believe his eyes. Rank 5 scrolls are not enough. Gu Yi was stunned and asked back. Enough! Tian roared. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Doomsday Flame, ranked 13th on the demonic fire list. Its power was unimaginable. He actually took out a rank 5 sealing scroll and wanted to seal Doomsday Flame. Idiot was not enough to describe this kind of foolish behavior. Even if Blazing Scarlet Flame and White Flame were just two clones of Doomsday Flame, a rank 5 sealing scroll was far from being able to seal them. Tion estimated that Blazing White Flame needed at least a rank 7 sealing scroll to be able to seal it, and Blazing Scarlet Flame needed a rank 8 sealing scroll. I really shouldn't have trusted old Goo so much. This is bad. Tion cried bitterly in his heart. He had overestimated Goo, thinking that the latter would have prepared everything. Who would have thought that in the end he actually only prepared a few rank 5 sealing scrolls? Although Goo had prepared for Doomsday Flame for decades, he actually had no idea how powerful it was. After all, he was just an alchemist from the 3,000 small worlds. Gaga. Blazing Scarlet Flame and White Flame let out strange laughter, and the faces formed from the flames almost turned into chrysanthemums. What do we do now? Goo subconsciously looked at Tion, unconcealable panic on his face. Act according to the situation. At this point, it was useless for Tion to be angry. He could only take a gamble. Fortunately, although the demonic fire was powerful, it did not have a physical body, so its combat power was not very terrifying. Only when the demonic fire fused with a martial artist's primordial spirit could it unleash its true power. Moreover, the demonic fire in the burial cloud abyss was also suppressed by the abyssal restrictions. Judging from the battle between Blazing Scarlet Flame and Tang Yu, they were close to the 9th level of the manifestation realm. Blazing White Flame was slightly weaker than Blazing Scarlet Flame, and should only have the combat power of a 5th level of the manifestation realm. Originally, if Goo had a rank 7 or 8 sealing scroll, it would be very easy to seal Blazing Scarlet Flame and White Flame, but now it had become very difficult. Chapter 150. Gaga. Little guy, without the sealing scroll, how are you going to deal with me with your strength at the 7th level of Origin Spirit Realm? White Flame's Xen chuckled as his huge flaming wings flapped in the air. Waves of scorching air came from the air, accompanied by the bloody aura of Earth Chi. If you're the strongest clone of the Doomsday Flame, Purple Flame Xen, I might be a little afraid, but you're the weakest White Flame Xen. Why would I be afraid of you? Tion shouted angrily as a terrifying aura gushed out from his body. Sword Chi spread out for several meters, enveloping his entire body. The sword light on the heaven slash of Sword Absolute Heaven shone brightly, forcibly dispersing the surrounding scorching air waves and Earth Chi. Gaga. White Flame's Xen let out a strange cry as the ghost face revealed a look of surprise. What a terrifying Sword Chi! Although he knew that Tion was only a swordsman in the Sword Chi realm, the aura of this Sword Chi was not inferior to a swordsman with sword heart. Old Goo, get ready. Tion transmitted his voice to Goo, reminding the latter to find the right time to seal White Flame's Xen. Okay, Goo agreed. Although the rank 5 sealing scroll was a little low, it could still be sealed when White Flame's Xen was weak if the timing was right. However, Goo was a little puzzled. Looking at Tion's appearance, it seemed that he could take down White Flame's Xen in one move. Gaga. Little fellow, let this seat see just how capable you are. White Flame's Xen laughed sinisterly as the white flames suddenly soared, covering dozens of meters and forming a frightening white fire net. Tion frowned slightly, but the corner of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. I wonder what effect star souls have on demonic fire. Tion thought to himself as the Yuan meridian in his body revolved to the extreme. Yuan Chi surged out of his body, directly ignoring White Flame's attack. Above the chaos original coffin, one of the 4 star souls sensed it and turned into a surging force, merging into the Yuan meridian in his dantian. 7 murderous flowing leaves. Tion murmured softly. Then he thrust his palm forward, and 7 strange forces shot out from his palm. every energy condensed into a leaf-shaped blade, striking at White Flame's fierce tongue like lightning. Quack! Idiot! White Flame's Liaxian didn't take it seriously and sneered. It did not think that a 7th-level essence spirit martial artist could pose any threat to it. But in the next instant, when the power of the 7 slaughter leaves astral soul completely erupted, White Flame's hollow eyes abruptly widened as a look of extreme shock and fear appeared on his face. Puff, puff, puff. A series of air-piercing sounds rang out, and White Flame's forked tongue was forcefully split apart, shattering into 7 to 8 pieces. G-A-G-A-G-A. G-A-G-A-G-A. Every ball of demon fire condensed into a sinister human face, and the sinister human face let out a mournful cry. Demon fire did not have a fixed form. After receiving this kind of attack, it should reform in the next moment. This was also the most difficult part of demon fire to deal with. But White Flame's Liaxian, which was hit by the 7 slaughter leaves astral soul, scattered and could not reform again. Astral souls really have a restraining effect on demon fire. Seeing this scene, Nyation could not help but raise the corner of his mouth. Previously, when he was dealing with the skeleton puppets, he had already discovered that the power of the stars had a strong restraining effect on demon fire. Astral souls were carved out by the power of the stars, so naturally, they also had a restraining effect on demon fire. Old Goo, what are you still standing there for? Seal it. Nyation saw that Goo-E was in a daze and hurriedly roared. If he waited for White Flame's Liaxian to gather together again, there would be no way to seal it. Only then did Goo-E react. He was just very surprised that Nyation could actually disperse White Flame's Liaxian with one move. Goo-E quickly opened the seal scroll and injected a wave of energy into it, activating the scroll. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The power of the seal scroll was immediately activated. The power of the seal turned into rays of 7-colored light that flowed in the air. Like a big hand, it firmly grabbed onto the remnant flames of White Flame's Liaxian. G-A-G-A. No. A miserable shriek could be heard, and the remnant flames of White Flame Lie's forked tongue were quickly sealed into the scroll. In the blink of an eye, only a ball of white flame was left in the air. The ball of white flame was trembling up and down, as if it was very afraid. This is mine. Right at this moment, an explosive roar rang out. Lan Binji's figure suddenly appeared. The black water mysterious ice yuan spirit turned into a mysterious ice sword. With a thrust of the sword, Lan Binji went straight for Goo-E. Lan Binji had tasted the benefits of demon fire and wanted to use the black water mysterious ice to absorb the demon fire. Courting death. At the crucial moment of sealing White Flame's Liaxian, how could he allow others to disrupt it? Nyation's expression turned cold, and he thrust his sword out. Sword end heaven / swept over, forcing Lan Binji to retreat. Right at this moment, the last ball of flame was successfully sealed. Goo-E immediately kept the seal scroll and let out a long breath. It was really too dangerous just now. If not for Nyation's timely intervention, Goo-E's old life might have been lost in Lan Binji's hands. Nyation, I am now at the 9th level of the all-creation realm. Do you think you are a match for me? Lan Binji's expression was sinister. Pale white flames were actually flowing on the mysterious ice sword. You absorbed the baleful aura of White Flame's Liaxian. Nyation looked at Lan Binji and immediately understood what was going on. Previously, Lan Binji was only at the 1st level of the all-creation realm. But now, he had actually reached the 9th level of the all-creation realm. It was obvious that he had absorbed the baleful aura. Nyation, today is the day you die. This place shall be your grave. Lan Binji did not answer Nyation's question. His pair of ice-cold eyes stared straight at Nyation as a dense killing intent enveloped him. Idiot! Nyation looked at Lan Binji coldly, as if he was looking an idiot. His eyes revealed undisguised contempt. Originally, Lan Binji had absorbed the power of White Flame's Liaxian. It was a good thing for him that his strength had skyrocketed. But now, what he needed most was to immediately go into seclusion and completely integrate the power of the demonic fire. But Lan Binji only wanted to kill Nyetian. His elemental energy was fluctuating violently. At this moment, Lan Binji's eyes were swollen and red. His entire body was shrouded in the bloody aura of the demonic fire. This was a sign that he was about to go berserk. Moreover, Lan Binji's strength had skyrocketed. The pressure from the abyssal restrictive power was also greater. With his current martial body, there was no way he could withstand this kind of restrictive power. Nyetian estimated that Lan Binji could explode and die at any time. Your Highness! At this time, Qin Hong Tian also arrived. Behind him, there was a figure. It was Shang Mingyu. Shang Mingyu, I thought you were a smart person. I didn't expect you to be the same as Lan Binji. Both are mad dogs. Nie Tianling looked at Shang Mingyu coldly and smiled playfully. Originally, I thought it was not easy for you to nurture the sword heart. But since you came here to die, don't blame me. Nie Tian said this to give Shang Mingyu one last chance. If Shang Mingyu left now, he could live. If he stayed, only death awaited him. Shang Mingyu's expression stiffened. Fear flashed in his eyes. He was obviously afraid. Chapter 151. Idiot. Nie Tianling looked at Shang Mingyu coldly and gave him the most direct evaluation of his actions. Shang Mingyu thought that with Lan Binji around, he would have a chance to take revenge. This idiot probably didn't even notice the existence of the abyss restriction. With Nie Tian's current strength, even under normal conditions, he was not afraid of Lan Binji. Not to mention that Lan Binji was not only under the pressure of the abyss restriction, but also in danger of exploding at any time. As for Qin Hong Tian, Nie Tian did not even put in his eyes. It was not an exaggeration to say that even if these people joined forces, they would not be able to fight against Nie Tian. The abyss restriction was too terrifying. Even Tang Yuyu was under absolute suppression, let alone Lan Binji and the others. What Nie Tian was most worried about was not these people in front of him, but the scarlet flame and the purple flame that had not appeared yet. The battle between Tang Yuyu and the scarlet flame continued, but Tang Yuyu was obviously at a disadvantage, being chased by the scarlet flame, and seemed to be unable to hold on any longer. Quack, little girl, obediently accept your death. I will let you see the power of the scarlet flame burning wild. The scarlet flame burning wild let out an ear-piercing scream. The white flame burning wild was sealed, but it did not affect it at all. Instead, it became more violent and crazy. Boom! A ball of flame shot up into the sky, burning everything within 100 meters of the sky. Although Tang Yuyu's 9-winged dragon crow was very strong, she was under the pressure of the abyss restriction and could not unleash the power of the 9-winged dragon crow. As the flames swept past, the 9 pairs of black wings on Tang Yuyu's back were burnt by the wave of air, turning them black. She was in a sorry state and screamed in pain. War God's 9 layers kill. Nie Tian saw this and stabbed out with his sword. 9 rays of sword chi shot up into the sky and attacked the scarlet flame burning wild. The scarlet flame burning wild formed a flaming ghost face and flapped its 10-meter-long red flame wings, dodging Nie Tian's attack. Quack! Little boy, you're not bad. You can actually condense such a terrifying sword chi. Fiery scarlet flame let out a strange cry, and his fiery face became ferocious. At the same time, he looked at Nie Tian with a hint of fear. Nie Tian's sword chi contained both Proud Sword Chi and Star Soul Sword Chi. The Astral Soul Sword Chi was born from the Origin Star Stones, and the astral energy had a strong suppressive effect on Devil Fire. Hence, the Astral Soul Sword Chi made Scarlet Fire Lai Shinzi feel threatened. Nie Tian, you're about to die, yet you still want to meddle in other people's business. Take care of yourself first. Lan Binji suddenly let out a furious roar. Without any hesitation, he attacked brazenly. Strange ice crystals formed in the air and instantly turned into icicles and sharp swords. They pierced through the air and attacked Nie Tian. Nie Tian smiled and spat out 2 words, "You're courting death." Lan Binji's current actions were indeed courting death. Although his strength had skyrocketed to the 9th tier of the all-creation realm, at the same time, he was being suppressed by the abyssal seal. Hence, the strength he could exert was not much stronger than the 1st tier of the all-creation realm. In fact, it might even be slightly weaker. Unfortunately, Lan Binji did not know this. The sudden increase in his cultivation and the devil fire aura in his body had almost caused him to lose his mind. One sword to overturn the night. Without even looking, Niet Tian stabbed out with his sword. The 5 to 6 meter long sword light was like a mountain pressing down on Lan Binji, making him feel an extremely terrifying pressure. No! Lan Binji screamed. His eyes were filled with helplessness and despair. He could not understand why his strength had increased to the 9th tier of the all-creation realm, but he still could not withstand a single blow from Ye Tian. Your Highness! Qin Han Tian did not expect this to happen either. He shouted, but it was too late. The sword light shook the sky and struck out with great force. Ah! Lan Binji screamed, and his body was sent flying. While he was still in midair, Lan Binji's expression suddenly became extremely painful. His face was hideous and terrifying, as if he was going through the cruelest torture. I don't want to die. Lan Binji suddenly felt something and let out a hysterical roar. However, it was too late. The devil fire was rampaging wildly in Lan Binji's body. In the blink of an eye, his Yuan meridians and Yuan spirit had been destroyed. Qin Han Tian stiffened, not knowing what had happened. Bang! In the next moment, with a loud bang, Lan Binji's body exploded and died. Blood filled the air. It was a terrifying scene. The prince of the Blue Cloud Empire, the arrogant Lan Binji, ended up in such a miserable state. His body exploded and he died. Not even half of his body was left. Ah! Qin Han Tian was stunned. It took him a long time to react, and he screamed in panic. Lan Binji was dead. Lan Binji, whose strength had increased to the 9th tier of the all-creation realm, died just like that. He was the prince of the Blue Cloud Empire, the son of the Empress. Nye Tian killed him just like that. Actually, to be precise, Lan Binji was not killed by Nye Tian. He was played to death by himself. After absorbing the power of the devil fire, he was not satisfied and wanted to kill Nye Tian. It could only be said that he was digging his own grave. Nye Tian, you killed His Royal Highness Binji. His Majesty the Emperor and the Empress will not let you go. Just wait for the 9 generations of your family to be executed. Qin Han Tian finally reacted and roared crazily. Is that so? Nye Tian suddenly turned around and fixed his cold eyes on Qin Han Tian. Qin Han Tian immediately felt the murderous intent that almost condensed into a solid substance. He suddenly shivered, and his whole body could not help but tremble. Run! For a moment, there was only one thought in Qin Han Tian's mind, and that was to run for his life. Although he did not know how Nye Tian could kill Lan Binji so easily, his rationality told him that the current Nye Tian also had the ability to kill him in a second. Do you think you can escape? Nye Tian had already seen through Qin Han Tian's thoughts. He laughed coldly and cold as if the death knell from hell exploded in Qin Han Tian's heart. Don't kill me. Qin Han Tian was so scared that his face turned pale. He wanted to turn around and escape, but both of his legs were like a 10,000-ton sandbag. He could not move even half a step. Nye Tian walked towards Qin Han Tian step by step. Qin Han Tian's knees went soft, and he collapsed to the ground. I don't want to die. I beg you, don't kill me. I am Qin Yityan's younger brother. I am his father. I beg you, please spare me. Qin Han Tian looked at Nye Tian, who was full of murderous expression. His logic was already messed up, and he was babbling nonsense. You are really a member of the Qin family. Nye Tian's lips curled up into a sinister smile. Originally, Qin Han Tian and the others were chasing after Nye Tian. But now, the situation was reversed, and they became little sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Die! Nye Tian did not hesitate at all. A sharp sword chi swept across, and Qin Han Tian's head fell to the ground. Before he died, his expression was still bitterly begging. After killing Qin Han Tian, Nie Tian looked at Shang Mingyu. At this time, Shang Mingyu was already scared silly. Originally, he thought that he was not afraid of death. But when death really came, the fear in his heart was magnified infinitely. Chapter 152. Shang Mingyu was incomparably regretful right now. Just tens of seconds ago, he could indeed leave safely. But he chose wrongly. Things having come to this point, Shang Mingyu did not think that Nie Tian would still let him go. "I'll kill you." Shang Mingyu suddenly mustered courage from who knows where. With a loud roar, flowing silver sword brazenly attacked. Powerful sword chi pervaded out, attacking straight for Nie Tian. But it was already too late. Even if Nie Tian and Shang Mingyu had a fair fight, the latter would not have any chance. The current Shang Mingyu was suffering from the abyss restriction suppression. How could he be Nie Tian's match? Fool! Nie Tian squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth, sword absolute heaven / attacking once more. With just one sword, Nie Tian easily broke all of Shang Mingyu's sword chi. Nie Tian, you... Shang Mingyu looked at the sword, chi piercing his chest in astonishment, fresh blood spurting out. He used all of his strength, looking at Nie Tian with a puzzled look. Until now, he still did not understand why Nie Tian, who was still at the same level as him not long ago, would actually become so terrifying at this moment. Until the moment of his death, Shang Mingyu did not detect the existence of the abyss restriction. When Gui saw Nie Tian easily kill the 3 people, his heart also went cold. Although these 3 people were all suffering from the abyss restriction suppression, they were still much stronger than ordinary 9th-level origin spirit martial artists. Nie Tian killed them with one move, enough to show how terrifying his strength was. Nie Tian also smiled lightly and murmured, "Thanks to the abyss restriction, or else I'd have to spend some more effort." Nie Tian, he shouted at this time, his gaze looking into the distance. Nie Tian immediately understood there was still a little tail that had not shown up all along. Gui had already said before that apart from Tang Yuyu and Lan Binji, there was still a 9th-level all-manifestation realm tracker. But the strange thing was this guy had not shown up all along. Who on earth could you be? Nie Tian frowned as he thought, actually unable to guess who else was following him. At this moment, Nie Tian wanted to meet the person hiding in the dark, but he was interrupted by Tang Yuyu's scream. In midair, crimson flames, terrifying flaming wings swept over, forcing Tang Yuyu to retreat again and again. At this moment, Tang Yuyu was already in an extremely sorry state. Most of the 9 pairs of dragon crow wings on her back were already damaged and incomplete, and it was already not easy for her to be able to stand in the air. Nie Tian, you can't be thinking of helping this killer, right? Seeing that Nie Tian's expression was not right, Gui asked in surprise. Nie Tian shook his head with a smile. She can't die yet. If it was any other assassin, Nie Tian naturally wouldn't care. However, the assassin in front of them clearly had an unclear relationship with Tang 13, so they had to save him. "Back off!" Nie Tian roared in a deep voice. The proud sky sword wings appeared again, and a pair of sword wings condensed from sword shadows appeared on his back. Tang Yuyu glared hatefully at Nie Tian and quickly retreated. In midair, Nie Tian and Lai Xinzi faced each other, less than 10 meters apart. Feeling the aura of the scarlet flame's forked tongue at such a close distance, Nie Tian finally understood that the scarlet flame's forked tongue was much stronger than the white flame's forked tongue. It was indeed not easy for Tang Yuyu to be able to fight with it until now. Ga. Little boy, you are indeed very powerful to be able to seal white flame. However, it's impossible for you to seal me with a mere 5th-grade sealing scroll. Blazing crimson flame's hollow eyes suddenly shrank, and he let out an ear-piercing cackle. Ardent Scarlet Flame's forked tongue was sealed. Not only did Ardent Scarlet Flame not feel sad, he even felt a little happy. Nie Tian knew that the words of the Scarlet Flame's forked tongue were right. Even if he used his astral souls to destroy the forked tongue, a 5th-ranked sealing scroll wouldn't be able to seal it. The strength of the Scarlet Flame's forked tongue was too strong. Even in its weakened state, It could easily break through the sealing power of a fifth-grade sealing scroll. Yet Tian wasn't nervous at all. He smiled faintly and said, "In the burial cloud abyss, even if you are a demonic flame doppelganger, you will still be suppressed by the restrictions of the abyss. If I want to leave, you won't be able to stop me." The restrictions of the burial cloud abyss were too strong. Even though it had existed for tens of thousands of years, the power of the restrictions was still comparable to a 7th grade or even an 8th grade spiritual array. The Scarlet Flame's forked tongue was only a doppelganger of the Doomsday Flame, but it was also suppressed by the abyss restrictions. Otherwise, Tang Yu wouldn't have been able to last until now. Compared to the Scarlet Flame's forked tongue, Nye Tian's greatest advantage was that he wouldn't be suppressed by the restrictions at all. Ga. The Scarlet Flame's forked tongue laughed sinisterly, clearly enraged. He shouted, "Today this seat must make you stay behind." Nye Tian knew too many secrets about the Doomsday Flame. The Scarlet Flame's forked tongue was determined to kill him at all costs. "You think you can make me stay?" Nye Tian laughed wildly, arrogantly. Actually, Nye Tian didn't plan to leave. He was determined to subdue the Scarlet Flame's forked tongue. Although the White Flame's forked tongue had been sealed, the sealing scroll was in Gu Yi's hands. Gu Yi had prepared for the Doomsday Flame for so many years, so he definitely wouldn't give the scroll to Nye Tian. Therefore, Nye Tian could only target the Scarlet Flame's forked tongue. He was prepared to use the forked tongue to save Jean de Bayo. Right now, Nye Tian just wanted to provoke the Scarlet Flame's forked tongue to see how strong the latter was. The Scarlet Flame's forked tongue was a doppelganger of the Doomsday Flame. It didn't have high intelligence, and under Nye Tian's provocation, it immediately flew into a rage. The Scarlet Flame wings expanded rapidly. In the blink of an eye, they had already reached a length of 100 meters. Ga. Scarlet Dragon Net. The Scarlet Flame's forked tongue roared in rage. The flame wings actually formed a large, spherical net that enveloped Nye Tian. Trapped in the Scarlet Dragon net, Nye Tian suddenly felt waves of heat, causing his face to turn red. His whole body was covered in sweat, and even his breathing gradually became uneven. Not good. This is a spiritual array. Gu Yi suddenly raised his head, and his expression changed. He never thought that the Scarlet Flame's forked tongue could actually form a spiritual array. Moreover, it was not a weak spiritual array. It turned out to be a Grade 3 spiritual array. A Grade 3 spiritual array was enough to trap a giant spirit realm martial artist. Ga. Little doll, you have fallen into my Scarlet Dragon net. Just wait for me to slowly refine you. The sword chi in your body is not bad. I'm very interested. The Scarlet Flame's forked tongue was very pleased. The flame wings retracted, and the Scarlet Dragon net actually retracted. When the Scarlet Dragon net was retracted to a certain limit, Nye Tian would be completely turned into a puddle of blood. Is this all you've got? Nye Tian felt the surrounding heat waves become more and more intense, but his expression was not nervous. He was waiting for the moment when the Scarlet Dragon net was at its weakest. Then, he would use his star soul to break through the shackles. Fool! At this time, Tang Yu, who was not far away, had recovered a little. Seeing that Nye Tian was trapped, her beautiful eyes immediately revealed a hint of fierceness, and she scolded. She did not know why Nye Tian wanted to save her, but she had a belief in her heart. Nye Tian must die, and he must die in her hands. Chapter 153. Oh, the aura of the Yuan Burst Pill. Although Nye Tian was inside the Crimson Dragonet formation, the aura of the 4th stage Yuan Burst Pill was extremely strong. He immediately felt it and looked at Tang Yu. Idiot, what are you trying to do? Nye Tian saw the 4th stage Yuan Burst Pill in Tang Yu's hand, and his expression changed drastically. With Tang Yu's 9th level Wanxiang strength, a 4th stage Yuan Burst Pill was enough to instantly raise her to the giant spirit realm. But to consume it in the burial cloud abyss was simply an extremely stupid move. There were powerful restrictions in the burial cloud abyss. The stronger a martial artist was, the greater the power of the restrictions they would endure. If Tang Yuyu instantly reached the giant spirit realm, just the pressure of the restrictions would nearly suffocate her. Although Nye Tian shouted, it was already too late. Tang Yuyu swallowed the fourth stage Yuan burst pill without hesitation. As the Yuan burst pill entered her body, the tyrannical medicinal effects of the fourth stage Yuan burst pill instantly erupted, flooding Tang Yuyu's Dantian's vital meridians. The sudden intense pain made her roar uncontrollably. In the blink of an eye, her aura started to skyrocket. But as her strength skyrocketed, her expression became even more pained, her beautiful face almost becoming sinister. What is she trying to do? Nye Tian was slightly startled, not knowing why Tang Yuyu would choose this time to consume the Yuan burst pill. Gagaga. This girl is really silly to the point of being cute. To actually consume an Yuan burst pill in the burial cloud abyss, isn't this seeking death? Scarlet Flame's flaming ghost face trembled with laughter, but in the next moment, its ghost face froze. Tang Yuyu instantly reached the giant spirit realm, completely ignoring the pressure of the restrictions. A 40-meter-tall, 9-winged dragon crow appeared behind her. It was the giant spirit true body of the 9-winged dragon crow's primordial spirit. The 9-winged dragon crow's enormous dragon claws galloped, 9 pairs of dragon crow wings blotting out the sky, a powerful aura surging out. Are you crazy? Nye Tian immediately came to his senses and roared. He finally understood what Tang Yuyu was trying to do. She wanted to forcefully break open Scarlet Flame's Crimson Dragon Net formation. 9-winged Dragon Crow's ultimate attack, Dragon Crow Knight Slash. Tang Yuyu and Yu Jiu's pair of Dragon Crow wings merged together, looking like a huge black sword. The powerful aura it exuded was enough to destroy heaven and earth. Ga. Damn it, is this girl crazy? Startled by Tang Yuyu's powerful aura, Fierce Red Flame's black eyes were filled with unconcealable fear. The 9-winged dragon crow's giant spirit true body stood proudly in the sky like a demon god that had walked out of hell. Ooh! The giant sword formed from the dragon crow's wings swung out violently, bringing with it the power of heaven and earth within 100 meters around it, smashing towards the crimson dragon net. Holy shit! He's really crazy. Gu, he shouted loudly, his figure hurriedly retreating. The following clash of ultimate moves would definitely be earth-shattering. Gu, he did not want to be a fish in the moat that would be caught in the crossfire. Gu, he was also very curious. This female assassin was clearly here to kill Nye Tian. Why did she suddenly risk her life to save Nye Tian? Could it be that Nye Tian is too good-looking, and this female assassin has taken a fancy to him? Gu Yi's heart surged with the most unreliable guess, but it was instantly overturned by him. He murmured, I'm an old man with a graceful demeanor, a jade tree in the wind. If this female assassin wants to look at someone, she can only look at me. Bang! Right at this moment, the Dragon Crow Knight Slash and the Crimson Dragon Net directly collided. The surrounding space trembled, and the baleful aura that pervaded the air was instantly swept away. The Crimson Dragon Net suffered a huge impact and instantly became on the verge of collapse. In just an instant, it could no longer withstand the pressure and directly broke apart. Ga. Fierce Red Flame let out an ear-piercing scream, and the pair of Scarlet Flame wings suddenly shrank, shrinking from 100 meters long to only a little more than 10 meters long. At the same time, Tang Yuyu's 9-winged dragon crow, giant spirit true body disappeared. Her body trembled, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Immediately after, she lost consciousness, like a broken leaf swaying in the wind. After forcefully consuming the rank 4 Yuan burst pill and forcefully using the giant spirit true body, Tang Yuyu's life was in danger under the pressure of the abyss restriction and the side effects of the Yuan burst pill. Nye Tian broke free from the Crimson Dragon Net, and the proud sky sword wings on his back shook. His figure flew over and hugged Tang Yuyu. After landing steadily, Nye Tian wanted to give Tang Yuyu a blood Yuan pill, but the latter couldn't even open her mouth. Ga. Damn it! Damn it! In midair, the crimson dragon net was broken, and fierce red flame immediately became furious. The pair of flame wings flapped violently, and two pillars of fire gushed towards Nietian. Save her! I won't allow her to die. Nietian handed Tang Yu to Gu Yi, and then with both feet, he directly rushed towards the fire pillars. Inverse Energy Netherblade. Nietian roared in the air and directly used his star soul to attack. Previously, when sealing White Flame's fierce red flame, Nietian had already used one of his star souls, 7 murderous flowing leaves. The Inverse Energy Netherblade was one of his 3 remaining star souls. Based on Nietian's judgment, the Inverse Energy Netherblade's power was even greater than the 7 murderous flowing leaves. Nietian's aura was like a rainbow, and his entire body surged with chilling yuan energy. With a thrust of his sword, a black sword light spurted out like a crescent moon, but in an instant, the aura was like a broken dam. The space trembled violently, and wave after wave of black sword light came pouring over. Ga. What a powerful force! Fierce red flame felt the terrifying power contained in the star's soul, and immediately let out a miserable scream. Under the black sword light, the fire pillars had no resistance at all and were dispersed in an instant. Ga. Not good. The crazily surging crescent moon sword light caused fierce red flame to turn pale, and the flame ghost face exaggerated to only 2 huge pupils. Fierce red flame suddenly sensed an aura that made him terrified, as if this sword light concealed a power that could suppress him. Gui also drew in a cold breath when he saw this from below. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would absolutely be unable to imagine that a level 7 origin spirit martial artist could actually instantly erupt with such terrifying power. Nietian's current strength had already completely subverted Gu Yi's understanding of the martial Dao. However, the might of the Inverse Energy Netherblade was still slightly weaker than the Annihilation Earth Seal that Nietian executed that day. The Inverse Energy Netherblade contained the power of the stars, and the power of the stars seemed to represent the power of the light attribute, and had a very strong suppressive effect on the demonic fire's earth fiend energy. Swish, swish, swish. Countless crescent moon sword lights flew past, mercilessly piercing through fierce red flame's formless body. In the next instant, fierce red flame's body turned into tens of balls of remnant flames, floating in the air like rootless duckweed. Gu Yi, Nietian roared. Gu Yi immediately understood. The rank 5 sealing scroll opened, and waves of sealing power circulated in the air, firmly trapping fierce red remnant flames. Nietian did not know if the rank 5 sealing scroll could seal fierce red flame, but he had to give it a try. The initial situation was pretty good. In a blink of an eye, over 10 clumps of remnant flames were sealed into the scroll. But right at this time, the sealing scroll became extremely unstable. Chapter 154. The sudden scene caused Gu Yi to be completely stunned. His face turned pale, and his eyes revealed fear. As expected, rank 5 sealing scrolls can't seal Scarlet Flame's forked tongue. Nietian did not have much of a reaction. He had already prepared for the worst. He had already felt that Scarlet Flame's forked tongue was far stronger than White Flame's forked tongue. A rank 5 sealing scroll could barely seal White Flame, but it was impossible to seal Scarlet Flame. Scarlet Flame's forked tongue broke through the sealing scroll, and tens of remnant flames began to gather in the air. Nietian, what do we do now? Seeing this scene, Gu Yi was even more shocked and shouted out in panic. Nietian's expression was indifferent as he said, "Bring her and leave first. Leave this place to me." Since he couldn't seal Scarlet Flame's forked tongue, Nietian couldn't make this trip for nothing. So, he had a crazy idea. Directly fuse with the demonic fire. Scarlet Flame's forked tongue was very strong, but Nietian was not willing to give up just like that. He believed that his primal chaos original coffin and the power of stars in his body could suppress Scarlet Flame's forked tongue. Since the power of stars can suppress the demonic fire, I believe that the primal chaos original coffin can suppress Scarlet Flame's forked tongue. Nye Tian thought. Gu took a look at Nye Tian and instantly made a decision: leave. Nye Tian, take care. Gu carried Tang Yu on his back and wanted to leave. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared and blocked his path. Want to leave? Do you think it's that easy? The green mask appeared, and a deep voice sounded. The man pointed at Gu and said, "Leave the sealing scroll behind." Sealing scroll? This person actually wanted the sealing scroll in Gu Yi's hands. The scroll that he wanted was naturally the scroll that sealed White Flame's forked tongue. Don't even think about it. Gu subconsciously roared. He had schemed for tens of years for the demonic fire, and now that the demonic fire was in his hands, how could he give it to someone else? Either leave the sealing scroll behind, or leave your life behind. The green mask trembled, and a pair of eyes flickered with undisguised killing intent. Nye Tian glanced at the masked man and felt that he looked familiar, but he could not recall his identity. This person has been following us all the way, so he must be someone I know. Who could it be? Nye Tian thought to himself. Suddenly, he roared, "Playing tricks! Don't tell me you don't have the face to see others." As soon as he roared, Nye Tian attacked right away. A beam of sword chi pierced through the air towards the masked man. Arrogant! The masked man shouted cold. His reaction was extremely fast, and his figure was even faster. He actually dodged Nye Tian's attack. At this moment, Nye Tian saw a flash of green light on the masked man's body, causing his heart to sink. It's a spirit array robe. No wonder your strength wasn't suppressed by the abyssal seal. Nye Tian immediately reacted and sneered. The masked man's strength was at the 9th level of the all-creation realm. At this level of strength, it would be very difficult for him to dodge Nye Tian's sword. However, this person's strength wasn't suppressed by the abyssal seal. This was because he was wearing a spirit array robe that could resist the abyssal seal. Nye Tian could tell that the spirit array robe on the masked man was only at the 3rd level. However, his strength wasn't very strong. He was only at the 9th level of the all-creation realm. Thus, the abyssal seal suppression was very weak, and the spirit array robe could counteract it. The spirit array robe was a special kind of robe made by a spirit array master. It could resist all kinds of abyssal seal. If Nye Tian had the spirit array robe, then Scarlet Flame's Scarlet Dragon web spirit formation wouldn't have been able to trap him. Nye Tian was rather surprised that the masked man actually had the spirit array robe. The spirit array robe was very precious. It was even rarer than the 4th level Golden Thunder battle armor that Jean de Bao was wearing. The fact that this person had the spirit array robe meant that his identity was extraordinary. He was definitely a big shot in the kingdom of blue clouds. Nye Tian, your knowledge has exceeded my expectations. However, this doesn't change anything. There's no way you can walk out of Burial Cloud Abyss alive today, the masked man said coldly. He seemed very confident. Is that so? Nye Tian glanced at Scarlet Flame's remnant flames in the air. He had to defeat the masked man before Scarlet Flame recovered. Otherwise, if the two of them joined forces, it would be troublesome. Even though the masked man was at the 9th level of the all-creation realm and wasn't affected by abyssal seal, Nye Tian still wasn't afraid. With his current strength, he might be able to fight against a martial artist at the 9th level of the all-creation realm. Moreover, he still had 2 star souls. He was confident that he wouldn't be defeated. When he thought of this, Nye Tian didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately attacked. The heaven-cleaving sword shone brightly, and a shocking sword slashed down. You're courting death. The masked man wasn't afraid in the slightest. He roared angrily, and a huge ape appeared behind him. It was his primordial spirit. Roar! The huge ape roared and raised its arms. A strange scene appeared. It actually had 2 more pairs of arms under its arms. The huge ape's 6 arms protected its chest and took Nye Tian's sword head-on. 6-armed ape. Nye Tian's figure froze, and he frowned. This person's primordial spirit was a little strange. It was actually a six-armed ape. Six-armed ape, a fifth-level primordial spirit. It had both strength and defense, and its combat strength was extremely strong. Oomph. The masked man sneered and said mockingly, "Nyetian, do you know who your opponent is now?" This sneer caused Nyetian's heart to tremble. He already knew the masked man's true identity. "Old Gu, you guys leave first." Nyetian descended from the sky, sending up a cloud of dust as he blocked the masked man. Gu Yi's timing wasn't bad. Without hesitation, he turned and ran. Scarlet Flame's tongue hadn't recovered yet. If he waited for it to recover, it would be too late to run. Run! The masked man smiled sinisterly. The six-armed ape's arms violently punched out. Two huge fist shadows appeared and directly sealed Gu Yi's path. What a powerful force! Gu Yi cried out in shock. He was almost hit by the fist shadows. Nyetian seized the opportunity and stabbed out with his sword. It was another familiar move, Night Collapsing Sword. A 10-meter-long sword light appeared in the sky, containing the terrifying aura of the Proud Sword Chi and Star Soul Sword Chi. For this sword, Nyetian spared no effort. His 10 elemental meridians revolved to the extreme. He had to win an opportunity for Gu Yi to escape. Violent Ape Lifting Mountain. The masked man was shocked by the power of Nyetian's sword. The six-armed ape raised its 6 arms to protect its head. Its entire body flickered with golden light. Bang! With a loud bang, the sword heavily smashed onto the masked man's head like a collapsing mountain. The six-armed ape actually withstood it. The masked man's figure suddenly sank. The ground beneath his feet couldn't support it anymore and caved in, forming a 10-meter-wide crater. Nyetian, I will wait for you at the Danhar Pavilion. Remember to come and get your devil fire diagram. Gu Yi saw the opportunity and shouted. With a flash, he had already leaped tens of meters away and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The masked man was instantly enraged. The six-armed ape suddenly unleashed its might and jumped out from the crater. However, Gu Yi's figure was already far away. Damn it! The ghostly green mask trembled. The masked man's entire body emitted a monstrous anger. A roar came out from his throat. He couldn't wait to tear Nyetian's corpse into pieces. He didn't expect that Nyetian could actually explode with such terrifying power. He had underestimated Nyetian. Chapter 155. So what if you know who I am? You won't live past today anyway. The masked man flew into a rage and tore off his mask, revealing a familiar face. Fan Jinji! Fan Jinji, it's really you. Nyetian smiled coldly, his expression becoming gloomy and terrifying. Fan Jinji, the younger brother of Tyrant Cloud Academy's deputy dean, Fan Jinwu. According to what Nyetian knew, Fan Jinji was one of the people who framed Qiushan back then. Nyetian really did not expect that this person who had always been hiding in the shadows was actually Fan Jinji. In fact, Nyetian and Fan Jinji had only met once. Back then, Nyetian defeated Qin Yuhu. Fan Jinji wanted to teach Nyetian a lesson, but was stopped by Qi Feng, who rushed over. He had long known about the grudge between the Fan brothers and Qiushan, but Fan Jinji taking the trouble to enter Burial Cloud Abyss to kill Nyetian still made Nyetian somewhat surprised. Did Fan Jinwu send you to kill me? Nyetian asked with a faint smile. So what if I did? Nyetian preventing Fan Jinji from obtaining the demonic fire made him unable to restrain his anger and roar crazily. That was the demonic fire, and it actually slipped away under his nose. How could Fan Jinji not be angry? If he could obtain the demonic fire, Fan Jinji would even give up on killing Nyetian. Fan Jinji roared repeatedly. Nyetian, you're so close to Qiushan. If I don't eliminate you, how can Big Brother and I be at ease? Now that you prevented me from obtaining the demonic fire, then use your little life as compensation. Fool! Nyetian looked at Fan Jinji with an extremely disdainful gaze and reprimanded coldly. Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror and see what kind of trash you are? A person like you also wants to obtain the demonic fire. It's simply a lazy dog wanting to eat shit. Wishful thinking. Fan Jinji only knew that the demonic fire was precious, but he completely did not know that the demonic fire in Gu Yi's hands was the 13th demonic fire on the demonic fire list. Although it was only the weakest of the 3 great clones, it was far from what a person like Fan Jinji could hope for. Gu Yi's identity was extraordinary. If he knew Fan Jinji's true identity, even Tyrant Cloud Academy would not be able to protect the Fan brothers. One had to know that even the dwarf beside Gu Yi, Tong Fu, was a terrifying existence at the 9th level of the giant spirit realm. Ah, little bastard, I'll tear you apart. Fan Jinji was completely enraged. The 6-armed gorilla let out a deep roar. Its 6 arms were like huge chains, violently swinging out. The air billowed, forcing Nie Tian to retreat. As expected, the strength of a martial artist at the 9th level of the all-creation realm cannot be underestimated. Nie Tian steadied his body, pondering whether or not he should use his star souls. He still had 2 more astral souls, the dragon raising arms and the flame demon armor. However, Fan Jinji was not his only enemy. There was also fiery crimson flame, as well as the strongest clone of the doomsday flame, fiery purple flame. If he wasted his star souls on Fan Jinji, Nie Tian would not have much confidence in subduing fiery crimson flame and fiery purple flame. After all, fiery purple flame was the strongest clone of the doomsday flame. Moreover, the main body of the doomsday flame was very likely to be with fiery purple flame. After some consideration, Nie Tian did not plan to use his star souls for the sake of safety. However, Fan Jinji's 6-armed gorilla origin spirit was very strong, and its defense was even more terrifying. Even if Nie Tian had the Proud Sword art and the 9 Extremes War God art, these heaven-defying martial arts techniques, he still could not pose a threat to it. The key was that Nie Tian's strength was too weak, and he could not display the power of these 2 great martial arts techniques. Nie Tian could only display 1 layer of the 9 Extremes War God art, and the Proud Sword art could only display 3 elementary forms. Even the weakest of the 3 intermediate forms, the Proud Sky Sword Wings, could only be used as a flying martial art technique. Let's not bother with this mad dog for now. Nie Tian took a step forward and leaped high into the air. The Proud Sky Sword Wings appeared on his back again. Fan Jinji was only at the 9th level of the manifestation realm. If he wanted to fly in the air, only a true energy realm martial artist could do it. Even a giant spirit realm martial artist could not do it. Nie Tian, don't run. Fan Jinji saw Nie Tian fly and thought that he was going to leave. So he immediately shouted, "Don't run, Nie Tian." However, Nie Tian ignored him. Nie Tian quickly calculated in his mind as he looked at the fiery scarlet flame that was still condensing in the air. The fiery ghost face of the fiery scarlet flame was about to appear. After a while, it would definitely condense back into its original form. That meant that Nie Tian had used one of his star souls for nothing. At this moment, Nie Tian suddenly felt the primal chaos original coffin in his body tremble. It seemed to be a little excited. What's the meaning of this? Nie Tian looked inside the primal chaos original coffin. It was actually trembling and emitting strange light waves as if it was trying to break free. I have the heaven-devouring soul that can be activated by the power of the stars. Could it be that the primal chaos original coffin wants to devour the demonic fire? A thought popped up in his mind, and Nie Tian instantly became excited. Ever since the primal chaos original coffin had awakened, this had never happened before. Apart from the time flow and the primal chaos original coffin being slower than the outside world, Nie Tian did not discover any other effects. However, Nie Tian knew that the primal chaos original coffin's origin spirit definitely had more uses than that. It was just that it had not been discovered yet. I can't care too much. I'll get my all. The moment he thought of this, Nie Tian no longer hesitated. His body trembled, and his origin energy surged out. The primal chaos original coffin's origin spirit appeared for the first time. The primal chaos original coffin's origin spirit was crystal clear and extremely exquisite. It gave off an extremely gorgeous feeling. There was a faint layer of light flowing around it, and within the light, there was an imperceptible layer of flowing space. This layer of space was very mysterious and extremely illusory. It was as if it had broken away from the original space-time and existed independently. Fan Jinji raised his head to look at the primal chaos original coffin behind Nietian. His donkey eyes were wide open, and his expression was completely stiff. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that someone's origin spirit was actually a coffin. Although this was an extremely gorgeous coffin, it was still a coffin in the end. The primal chaos original coffin flowed around Nietian's body, but it had a majestic aura that looked down on everything. It gave off an extremely deep and boundless feeling. Hee, what a strange origin spirit. Scarlet Flame's tongue had already returned to its fiery face. It struggled to laugh strangely, and it seemed to be laughing at Nietian. Nietian smiled coldly and said coldly, "You will soon find out how terrifying this strange origin spirit is." At this moment, Nietian had a very crazy idea in his mind. He suddenly remembered the first time he entered the Primal Chaos original coffin. The Primal Chaos original coffin had formed a strange whirlpool that sucked him in. If I absorb the demonic fire into the Primal Chaos original coffin, what will happen? Nietian's heart was inexplicably excited. A kind of instinct urged him to boldly try it. Little boy, your origin spirit is so strange. Other than scaring people, it has no other use. Why don't you let me refine it? That way, you won't embarrass yourself when you go out. Scarlet Flame's tongue was about to completely recover, and it kept making strange noises. Nietian did not hesitate anymore. If he waited for Scarlet Flame's tongue to completely recover, then it would be terrible. Chapter 156. Ga. Kiddo, are you crazy? Realizing that Nietian was actually trying to devour it with the primordial spirit, the Crimson Flame's forked tongue began to tremble and become incoherent. Its eyes suddenly widened, revealing its panic. Although it had mocked Nietian's origin spirit, Scarlet Flame did not know what kind of origin spirit the Primal Chaos original coffin was. If it really had the ability to devour, then it would be over. Nietian's expression was tense, and his heart was in his throat. He did not know what would happen next. Perhaps Scarlet Flame's origin spirit would be imprisoned by the Primal Chaos original coffin, or perhaps the Primal Chaos original coffin would be destroyed by Scarlet Flame's origin spirit. If his origin spirit was destroyed, Nietian would really cry. However, he had an inexplicable confidence in the Primal Chaos original coffin. It could definitely devour Scarlet Flame's origin spirit. Fan Jinji, who was watching from below, was shocked by Nietian's crazy actions. In midair, the Primal Chaos original coffin created a chaotic vortex. Like a bodiless snake, it opened its mouth wide and lunged at Scarlet Flame. Scarlet Flame's first thought was to escape, but the chaotic vortex had a strong suction force. Although Scarlet Flame's origin spirit had no physical body, it could not escape the range of the chaotic vortex. In the blink of an eye, the chaotic vortex absorbed Scarlet Flame's origin spirit. This time, Scarlet Flame's origin spirit couldn't even let out its classic scream. The chaotic vortex disappeared, and so did the Primal Chaos original coffin. At the same time, Nietian suddenly felt a violent force inside his dantian. It was as if his body was about to be torn apart. The sudden pain made Nietian scream. The proud sky sword wings on his back became weaker and weaker, as if they would disappear at any moment. Inside the Primal Chaos original coffin, countless crimson flames crashed against the Primal Chaos original coffin, trying to break free. This collision transformed into a soul-tearing pain for Nietian. Nietian's entire body was drenched in cold sweat, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Fan Jinji saw Nietian screaming in pain in midair, but he didn't know what was happening. Of course, he wanted to take this opportunity to kill Nietian, but he did not know any flying martial skills, so he could only watch from afar. Blazing crimson flames, forked tongue morphed into balls of flames that rammed against the primal chaos original coffin. This was a competition. Whoever could last until the end would have the last laugh. Ah! Yet Tion cried out once more. Intense pain spread throughout his body. It was as if there were thousands of sharp blades pressing against his body. If he moved even the slightest bit, his body would be torn apart. However, Niet Tion clenched his teeth and forced himself to stay awake. If he fainted now, everything would be over. Only by going through the bitterest of hardships can one rise above others. Niet Tion understood this logic better than anyone else and experienced it more deeply than anyone else. Therefore, no matter what kind of pain he had to endure, he would not give up. Slowly, half a minute passed. The pain of his body being torn apart did not lessen. Instead, it became more intense. Waves of strange energy rushed into Niet Tion's meridians, causing him to feel as if his entire body was being pulled by a huge force and would be torn apart in the next moment. At that moment, Niet Tion felt a force that was several times stronger than before tearing him apart. He almost fainted from the pain. At the same time, a shocking change occurred in the primal chaos original coffin. A small chaotic vortex formed and began to devour the violent demonic flames. The speed at which the chaotic vortex devoured the demonic flames was slow, but stable. After a long time, all of the demonic flames were devoured. At that moment, the pain on Niet Tion's body stopped. He steadied himself and began to observe everything in the primal chaos original coffin. The current primal chaos original coffin did not change much compared to before. The halo of light outside was much thinner, most likely due to the resistance from blazing crimson flames' forked tongue. In the primal chaos original coffin, apart from the Star Soul original book, there was also a turbid object. The turbid object floated quietly in the boundless space of the primal chaos original coffin, bringing a hint of life to the deathly, silent space. 9 transformations of chaos, born from nothingness, awakening of the primal chaos original fetus. A shocking voice suddenly rang in Niet Tion's ears, as if it came from all directions. Primal chaos original fetus. Niet Tion was stunned when he heard the voice. He stared blankly at the primal chaos original fetus in front of him. The primal chaos original fetus was an embryo of a world that was still being nurtured. It filled the entire chaotic space with hope. Niet Tion could sense an unusually strong life force from the primal chaos original fetus. It was as if nothing could stop this powerful life force. I wonder what's inside the primal chaos original fetus. Niet Tion muttered to himself as he sensed the vigorous life force coming from the primal chaos original fetus. Niet Tion did not know what the 9 transformations of chaos meant. However, he had a feeling that the thing inside the primal chaos original fetus was an incredibly terrifying existence. Where's Red Flame lies Z? Suddenly, Niet Tion realized that Scarlet Flame's scorching flame was nowhere to be found inside the primal chaos original coffin. However, he understood what was going on the next moment. Niet Tion sensed a trace of Scarlet Flame's scorching flame's aura inside the primal chaos original fetus. Scarlet Flame's scorching flame has become the primal chaos original fetus's nourishment. Niet Tion gulped in shock. He suddenly understood a lot of things, and a crazy speculation began to form in his mind. The primal chaos original coffin is just a container to nurture the primal chaos original fetus. Could it be that the primal chaos original spirit is my real origin spirit? Niet Tion mumbled to himself. Even he could not believe such a ridiculous speculation. However, the truth was right in front of him. There was no room for doubt. The primal chaos original fetus is using Scarlet Flame's scorching flame as nourishment. Just how terrifying is the thing inside the primal chaos original fetus? Niet Tion could not imagine it all. No matter what, I must not reveal the primal chaos original coffin in front of others. Nie Tian decided that he would not use the Primal Chaos original coffin before it was nurtured. Oh no, Fan Jinji. Thinking of this, Nie Tian suddenly remembered that there was still a Fan Jinji. Fan Jinji had seen Nie Tian's Primal Chaos original coffin, so he absolutely couldn't be allowed to live. Nie Tian came to his senses and immediately looked at Fan Jinji. Fan Jinji looked at Nie Tian in a daze. He had yet to recover from his shock. Fan Jinji, you've seen too many things that you shouldn't have. Prepare to die. Nie Tian slowly descended. The aura emanating from his body was even stronger than before. With the awakening of the chaotic origin embryo, and even absorbing the power of the scarlet fire scorching star, Nie Tian's strength had actually unknowingly risen by a level, reaching the 8th level of essence spirit. Moreover, the power of the stars on the 10th vein origin star stone had naturally awakened, and the original 128 stars had increased to 256 stars. Chapter 157. Fan Jinji finally reacted. There was a hint of fear in his eyes as he looked at Nie Tian, but he still roared angrily. Little bastard, do you think I'll be afraid of you just because you absorbed the power of the demonic fire? Fan Jinji saw Nie Tian swallow the scarlet flame's tongue with his own eyes. This scene still made him feel dizzy, as if he was in a dream. However, he was a 9th level all-manifestation martial artist, after all. Although he realized that Nie Tian's strength had increased by quite a bit, he was still fairly confident that he could defeat Nie Tian. Fan Jinji even thought that if he killed Nie Tian, he might be able to obtain the power of the demonic fire in the latter's body. One had to say that Fan Jinji thought too much. Fan Jinji, you framed Qiu Shan and wanted to kill me. Today I'll settle old and new grudges and take your dog life. Nie Tian was also full of confidence. He could use Fan Jinji to test his strength. Arrogant. Fan Jinji calmed down. The 6-armed ape appeared again and punched out. A 9th level all-manifestation martial artist's origin spirit had already condensed into a solid form. The power of one punch was definitely enough to split mountains and break rocks. Nie Tian didn't want to retreat or dodge. He punched out directly, meeting the 6-armed ape's attack head-on. The victorious Imperial Fist was used again. The golden fist shadows surged. Reckless. Seeing that Nie Tian chose to meet him head-on, Fan Jinji laughed coldly, his face revealing a hideous expression. Bang! The two fists collided like giant rocks colliding, making a loud sound. Nie Tian felt a majestic force traveling along his arm. He was actually unable to withstand it and was directly sent flying. At the same time, Fan Jinji's figure also froze, and he abruptly retreated several steps. The 6-armed ape's absolute strength is indeed terrifying. Nie Tian stabilized his body, a trace of blood seeping out of the corner of his mouth. He had already awakened the power of 256 stars in his body. Together with the divine Imperial Fist, the power of one punch exceeded 100,000 kilograms. However, he was still repelled by the 6-armed ape. This showed how terrifying the 6-armed ape's strength was. Actually, with Nie Tian's current strength, merely at the 8th level essence spirit realm, contending with Fan Jinji, who was a major cultivation realm higher than him, was already very heaven-defying. If others were to witness this scene, they would definitely be subdued by Nie Tian's strength. But for Nie Tian, this power was far from enough. Since he had been reborn, he had to become an unparalleled existence. He's not dead. Fan Jinji knocked back Nie Tian with a punch. His face was not filled with joy, but surprise and shock. He was a martial artist at the 9th level of the Wan Xiang realm, and the 6-armed savage ape was an absolute strength-type primordial spirit. Under such circumstances, he was actually only able to repel Nie Tian. This was simply a disgrace. Die! Fan Jinji was enraged. The 6-armed gorilla suddenly opened up its 6 arms, and the sand and stones on the ground actually reacted, trembling and wrapping around the gorilla's huge arms. Nie Tian was slightly taken aback. He did not expect Fan Jinji to have such a trick up his sleeve. The six-armed gorilla's huge arms were wrapped by sand and stones, appearing even thicker and more powerful. Tian, prepare to die. The martial technique that Fan Jinji was currently using was called Sandstone Crash. Absorbing the energy within the sand and stones was sufficient to raise his strength to a terrifying level. If Tian were to choose to clash head-on with him now, there was only death awaiting him. Tian was naturally not a fool. Seeing that Fan Jinji's strength had increased by quite a bit, he could not help but frown slightly. Looks like it's time to use my astral souls. Tian mumbled and made a decision in his heart. Using astral souls, he still had two astral souls in his hands, dragon-raising arms and flame demon armor. The flame demon armor was a defense-type astral soul and could definitely withstand Fan Jinji's sandstone crash. But Tian did not wish to defend. He wanted to take the initiative to attack. Six-armed gorilla, sandstone crash. Fan Jinji roared in rage as he extended his 6 arms, causing the sand and stones on the ground to fly up. Immediately, 6 terrifying fist shadows blasted towards Tian. The power of the sandstone crash was extremely strong. The power of a single punch exceeded 150,000 Jin. With 6 punches, even a giant spirit realm martial artist would not dare to be careless. Fan Jinji was certain that Tian would be killed by this move, and the smile on his face grew even more ferocious. When he thought of the fact that Tian still had demonic flames on him, he let out a hysterical, shrill laugh. "Do you really think you can kill me?" Tian's face was as gloomy as water. Both of his feet stomped on the ground. He had no intention of dodging. Instead, Yuan energy surged out of his body, and his aura became fierce. Astral Soul, dragon-raising arms. Without dodging, Tian once again used the Astral Soul on the Primal Chaos original coffin. In an instant, his aura suddenly rose. Roar! With a punch, a clear and intense dragon roar resounded in the air. Fan Jinji's face froze for a moment. He did not know where this dragon roar came from. One punch, and I will send you on your way. Tian smiled coldly. A terrifying change actually happened to his arm. It suddenly expanded by a few times, and in an instant, it turned into a lifelike dragon arm. Even the dragon scales could be seen clearly. Bang, bang, bang. The dragon arm suddenly exerted force. A tyrannical wave of air swept over, and the 6 punches of the 6-armed gorilla all collapsed. Realizing that something was wrong, Fan Jinji shouted in panic. However, he only managed to shout one word. Immediately after, a violent wave of air surged over and bombarded his body like a solid bombardment. Before the dragon-raising arm's fist arrived, Fan Jinji's aura had already dispersed. Under the impact of the wave of air, his clothes were actually torn apart. Following that, his skin was unable to withstand the impact of the wave of air. Inch by inch, cracks appeared, and lines of blood appeared. Bang! Finally, with a loud bang, Fan Jinji shot out like a heavy lead stone. In an instant, he smashed heavily on the ground tens of meters away. Sand and dust flew everywhere, and a deep pit appeared on the ground. In the next moment, Fan Jinji actually shot out from the deep pit. His whole body was dripping with blood. Fan Jinji used all his strength to raise his arm, but only stopped in midair. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but not a single word came out. Instead, he spat out a mouthful of dirty blood. His body swayed a few times and finally fell to the ground completely dead. What terrifying strength! Tian murmured as he watched Fan Jinji fall to the ground. His gaze shifted to his arm. Even he didn't think that the power of the dragon-raising arms would be so terrifying. One must know that Fan Jinji was a warrior at the 9th level of the Wanxiang realm. Furthermore, his 6-armed gorilla Yuan spirit and sandstone collapse were not weak. He could barely fight against a giant spirit realm warrior. Unfortunately, even with such combat strength, he still couldn't withstand a punch from the dragon-raising arms. The power of Star Souls is too terrifying. Looks like I have to inscribe more Star Souls in the future. Tian laughed and said excitedly, The dragon raising arms was only a first-rank star soul, and it was already so terrifying. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the second and ninth-rank star souls would be in the future. Also, the star totem on the star Raw stone was an extremely powerful star soul that connected heaven and earth. Its power would definitely be unimaginably strong. Right now, Nietian was confident that he could kill any warrior below the giant spirit realm with star souls. Chapter 158. Nietian smiled as he thought about it. He walked up to Fan Jinji and raised his arm. A gray cloak appeared in his hand. It was Fan Jinji's spiritual formation robe. The spiritual formation robe was good stuff. Nietian would not let it go. Rank 3 spiritual formation robe. The runes are not bad. It's not damaged. I can still use it. Nietian sensed the runes on the spiritual formation robe and mumbled to himself. He then kept the spiritual formation robe into his infinite space ring. Nietian did not like things like armor robes. Compared to these things, he was more inclined to improve his own strength. As long as he was strong enough, he would not care about any spiritual formation robe or powerful attacks. After keeping the spiritual formation robe, Nietian searched Fan Jinji's belongings and obtained another infinite space ring. There seemed to be quite a lot of things in it. Nietian did not have time to check them one by one. He walked up to Lan Binji, Qin Hantian, and the rest, and looted everything. As for Qin Yulong, there was nothing left of him. Nietian did not want to bother looking for anything else. After doing all this, Nietian began to observe his surroundings. At this moment, he was in the center of the cloud burial abyss, where the murderous aura was so strong that he couldn't see very far. However, his psychic power was strong enough that even though the murderous aura hindered his perception, he was still able to see everything within a 500-meter radius. The Doomsday Flame's main body is here. What's strange is that it has not shown up. Nietian frowned. He was confused. The Doomsday Flame's 2 clones, White Flames and Red Flames, one was sealed and the other was forcefully devoured. At this time, the Doomsday Flame's main body and strongest clone, Purple Flames, still did not show up. It was very strange. Although Nietian had absorbed the Red Flame's power, the Demon Fire's power was completely absorbed by the chaotic origin fetus. He could not separate it. He was now faced with an awkward problem. He could not use the Demon Fire to suppress Jean de Bayo's Demon God seal. I must find the Purple Flame's main body or the Doomsday Flame's main body. Nietian murmured. Although he knew that the power of the Purple Flame forked tongue or the Doomsday Flame's main body must be very terrifying, and he might not be a match for them, he still had to try. The Demon Fire diagram would not be a problem, so the Doomsday Flame's main body must be in the Burial Cloud Abyss. Moreover, the Burial Cloud Abyss was the battlefield of the ancient gods and demons. There might be unexpected good things inside. After careful consideration, Nietian decided to explore the cloud abyss thoroughly. He was a little worried about Tang Yuyu's injuries. After consuming the Tier 4 Yuan Burst Pill and forcefully activating the giant spirit true body, Tang Yuyu's life was definitely in danger. Since that old bastard Gu Yi was once a 6th-tier alchemist, he will definitely be able to save Tang Yuyu's life. Nietian muttered to himself, choosing to believe in Gu Yi's strength. At this moment, Nietian suddenly recalled Gu Yi's words before he left, asking him to go to the Danhart Pavilion to retrieve the Devil Fire diagram. Gu Yi was quite sincere and didn't forget his promise to Nietian. Old Gu, I'll definitely go get the demonic flame diagram. Nietian smiled faintly. Then he stopped thinking about it and started exploring the Burial Cloud Abyss. The Burial Cloud Abyss was tens of thousands of meters. Nietian's exploration was very slow. What surprised him was that the Burial Cloud Abyss was like a huge cemetery. There was no aura. Although the Burial Cloud Abyss was a cemetery, there was still the Doomsday Flame. How could there be nothing? 2 days later, Nietian had thoroughly searched the entire cloud burial abyss twice, but he still hadn't found anything. Apart from the skeletons, there was nothing. It was a dead basin filled with baleful aura. Did I miss something? Confusion filled Nietian's face as he slowly laid his eyes on the ground. Tian suddenly came to a realization and exclaimed, "Underground!" The Doomsday Flame did not have a physical body. It could move underground. It was very likely that it was hiding underground. I'm AF * King Genius. Tian couldn't help but praise himself. Then he fixed his gaze on the center of the burial cloud abyss. That was where the murderous aura gathered, and it was very likely that the Doomsday Flame's true form was hiding under the ground. With this in mind, Tian no longer hesitated and quickly walked over. Divine War Emperor Fist. Tian punched the ground, but to his surprise, he felt as if his fist had hit nothing but air. His entire body fell into a huge pit with a plop. Tian staggered and almost fell. He quickly steadied himself and looked up, only to find that he had fallen into a huge pit with a radius of several dozen meters and a depth of more than 10 meters. This is where the Doomsday Flame is. Smelling the strong demonic aura in the air, Tian made a judgment. The pit was where the Doomsday Flame used to be. Of course, he knew that it was impossible for his punch to have such great power. This pit had been there for a long time. It was a place the Doomsday Flame used to hide. Tian looked around. He immediately smelled a burning smell. He could not help but frown. Turning around, Tian saw a pile of ashes in front of him. It was still steaming. Tian took a closer look and found that the pile of burned items was actually a pile of ancient scrolls of martial arts techniques and scrolls. Tian casually picked up one of the fragments, and as soon as he saw the words on it, his expression flickered. This scroll fragment actually recorded a martial art from the ancient times. Damn it! Tian clenched his fists and cursed. These were all ancient martial arts manuals and martial skills, yet they were burned to ashes by someone. This person was truly abominable. There were at least thousands of martial arts scrolls. Their grades were not low. Even if they were not used for cultivation, they could be auctioned for an immeasurable amount of wealth. Tian surmised that they were all cultivation scrolls of ancient martial artists. No wonder there was nothing in the entire burial cloud abyss. It turned out that they all ran here. Who did it? Tian guessed in his heart. Finally, a name appeared in his mind. Doomsday Flame. Burning martial arts scrolls. Any martial artist with the slightest bit of rationality would not do it. Every martial art was the crystallization of a martial artist's martial Tao comprehension. Only an inhumane thing, like the devil-fire Doomsday Flame, could do something as ridiculous as burning a large amount of martial arts. The Doomsday Flame collected so many scrolls and suddenly burned them. Now they're gone. What does it want to do? Tian frowned. The doubt between his brows grew heavier. These scrolls were clearly just burned. It meant that the Doomsday Flame had just left. Tian smiled bitterly, unable to understand what was going on. Burning the scroll and running away? The Doomsday Flame makes it seem like I'm fleeing. Am I really that scary? He really couldn't figure out what was going on. With the strength of the Doomsday Flame, it was completely capable of contending against Tian. There was no need for it to flee. Just a single scarlet flame scorching tongue had left Tian badly battered, and even his primordial spirit had almost been destroyed. Blazing purple flame was even stronger than blazing scarlet flame, and Doomsday Flame's main body was even stronger. However, under such circumstances, the Doomsday Flame had actually chosen to flee. It was truly puzzling. Chapter 159. Tian's gaze was fixed on a scarlet petal on the ground, and his expression immediately became shocked. The crimson petals were crimson in color, tender and beautiful like blood. Even in the abyss that was filled with an extremely dense, baleful aura, it was still exceptionally dazzling. That kind of shocking redness would make anyone who saw it feel pity. Tian naturally recognized this kind of flower, and he was very familiar with it because he had once planted it, and it was one of his favorite flowers, the fantasy flower blood lotus. The fantasy flower blood lotus was a rank 9 divine flower. It was rumored to be a mystical flower that had existed since the beginning of the world. Tian had once obtained a magic flower blood lotus seed by chance. After carefully nurturing it for 10 years, the magic flower blood lotus finally bloomed and covered the entire pond. Most importantly, Nietian had given the phantom flower blood lotus to Luo Xian as a token of their love. But who would have thought that in the end, Nietian would actually die in the hands of Luo Xian? Sure enough, their love was like the illusory blood lotus, and it actually ended in blood. Now that he saw the phantom blood lotus again, Nietian thought of many things, and his expression changed. After a long time, Nietian finally calmed down. Looking at the blood lotus petal in his hand, he muttered to himself, "The magic flower blood lotus is a rank 9 divine flower. Why would it appear in the 3,000 small worlds? Moreover, why would it appear in such an extremely sinister place?" After careful observation, Nietian finally discovered something. Although the petals of the crimson lotus in his hand were bright red, if one were to look closely, one would discover that the veins in the petals were actually flowing with threads of black, baleful aura. This fantasy flower blood lotus grew up in the burial cloud abyss. It absorbs the baleful yin qi of the abyss all year round. That's why there's a baleful yin qi in its veins. Nietian immediately understood. A bold guess suddenly appeared in his mind, causing him to be stunned on the spot, unable to recover for a long time. After a long while, Nietian's stiff face relaxed a little, but there was still an extraordinary shock in his eyes. The illusion flower blood lotus, appearing in the burial cloud abyss, was clearly left behind by the doomsday flame. As for how the doomsday flame had obtained the illusion flower blood lotus seed, Nietian had no idea. What was certain was that the phantom flower blood lotus in Nietian's hand had been nurtured by the doomsday flame using the yin energy of the burial cloud abyss. As for the doomsday flame's purpose in cultivating the illusory blood lotus, Nietian had already guessed it, to form a physical body. Yes, the doomsday flame wanted to use the phantom blood lotus to form a physical body. Although the doomsday flame was ranked 13th on the demon fire list, it didn't have a physical body. It was just a wisp of flame. Without a physical body, the demonic flame could not display its true power. Therefore, the combat power of the doomsday flame was not as terrifying as imagined. At most, it was equivalent to a peak true energy realm warrior or a spirit wheel realm warrior. Although this kind of power was terrifying enough for Nietian, if he encountered a true powerhouse, he would not be able to withstand a single blow. However, if the doomsday flame formed a physical body, it would be a completely different story. With a physical body, the doomsday flame could cultivate like a human warrior. Moreover, its cultivation speed would far exceed that of a human warrior. At most, it would take a few years to grow to the level of a heavenly emperor realm warrior. Nietian had heard of the demonic fire forming a physical body before, but very few of them succeeded. The doomsday flame did not know where he got the illusion flower blood lotus seed. The illusion flower blood lotus was a rank 9 sacred flower with extremely strong vitality. The doomsday flame felt that this was an opportunity. Of course, he would try to form a physical body. The illusion flower blood lotus was indeed very suitable for forming a physical body. Looking at the situation, the doomsday flame almost succeeded, or perhaps he had already succeeded. However, the arrival of Nietian and the others disturbed the process of the doomsday flame forming a physical body. During the process of forming a physical body, the doomsday flame was in a weakened state. He could only send white flame and scarlet flame to stop Nietian and the others. However, they were sealed and absorbed by Nietian. Seeing that the situation was not good, the doomsday flame fled in panic with the help of purple flame. Nietian outlined the whole story in his mind. The corners of his mouth could not help but curl into a strange smile. Doomsday flame, I wonder if you have successfully formed a physical body. If you have not formed a physical body, you must be very weak right now. Even if you have formed a physical body, you will have to cultivate from the beginning. I'm guessing that you have not escaped far. Your main body should still be in a nearby empire or city. Nietian murmured. His eyes revealed a desire, showing that he still had not given up on the doomsday flame. Nietian estimated that the doomsday flame had not escaped far. He was definitely still in the mini-Sumera world. It was very likely that he was still in a nearby empire. He might not even have left the Blue Cloud Empire. If the Doomsday Flame had successfully formed a physical body, he would be an ordinary human warrior with the strength of a first-level Origin Meridian cultivator. Therefore, he would not be able to escape too far in a short period of time. This meant that Nye Tian still had a chance. In fact, Nye Tian was really lucky to have encountered the Doomsday Flame forming a physical body. If not for this, the Doomsday Flame's main body and Purple Flame's forked tongue would have sent Nye Tian running for his life. He did not even know if he could escape. Since the Doomsday Flame had destroyed all the martial technique scrolls, it was almost impossible for Nye Tian to find any other treasures in the Burial Cloud Abyss. However, Nye Tian did not give up. He walked to the pile of ashes and began to carefully flip through the incomplete martial technique scrolls, hoping to find the complete martial technique. What is this? Nye Tian flipped through it for a long time, but found a black stone tablet at the bottom of the ashes. Nye Tian picked up the black stone tablet. It was engraved with simple and clumsy characters. The leftmost row of characters was the name of the martial technique. Light Wind, Clear Moon Art. Light Wind, Clear Moon Art. Good name. Nye Tian smiled faintly and carefully looked at the lines on the stone tablet. He muttered to himself, "This should be some kind of spirit beast shell bone." Looking at the bone markings on it, it's at least several tens of thousands of years old. It should be a martial technique passed down from ancient times without a doubt. In ancient times, martial artists carved martial techniques on spirit beast shell bones. This way, they could ensure that the martial technique was passed down, and they could also integrate the martial Dao true intent into the spirit beast shell bone, killing two birds with one stone. Judging from this, the Light Wind, Clear Moon Art should be a martial technique passed down from ancient times. Figuring out the era of the Light Wind, Clear Moon Art, Nye Tian sucked in a deep breath and could not help feeling somewhat agitated. The Doomsday Flame definitely did not discover the Light Wind, Clear Moon Art. That was why this martial technique was fortunate enough to be preserved. Nye Tian took a closer look. The Gale Moon incantation had been created by a man named Jiyu in ancient times. Judging from the name, it should be a female martial artist. Furthermore, the Light Wind, Clear Moon Art's attribute was also very obvious. It was a light and wind dual attribute cultivation technique. Generally speaking, martial techniques were all singular attributes. The majority belonged to the 5 elements of the earth. Dual attribute martial techniques were very rare. What surprised Nye Tian was that the Light Wind, Clear Moon Art actually did not state the martial techniques grade. Chapter 160. This Light Wind Great Moon Art is simply tailor-made for Ninth Sister. Nye Tian couldn't help but smile when he thought of Nye Yuro, who had just awakened her flowing colored demon rabbit origin spirit. Nye Yuro's flowing colored demon rabbit origin spirit was a dual attribute of light and wind, perfectly compatible with the Light Wind Great Moon Art. Nye Tian put away the Light Wind Great Moon Art with satisfaction, and then carefully checked again to make sure there were no other martial arts left before giving up. The Doomsday Flame was really too hateful. Before it left, it actually burned all of the martial arts manuals. Otherwise, Nye Tian would have made a huge fortune. Thousands of martial arts scrolls. Just thinking about it made him excited. Just based on the Doomsday Flame's action of burning martial arts, Nye Tian would not let it go. Next, Nye Tian thoroughly checked the huge pit in front of him, and after not finding anything else, he reluctantly jumped out of the pit. It's time to leave. The Doomsday Flame was no longer in the Burial Cloud Abyss. Furthermore, it had burned everything before it left, so there was no point in staying here any longer. Nye Tian was prepared to leave immediately. There was still a devil fire diagram waiting for him at Guyi's place. Moreover, Nye Tian was also very worried about Tang Yuyu's safety, so he immediately left the Burial Cloud Abyss. Coming out of the Burial Cloud Abyss, Nye Tian took a deep breath and immediately felt refreshed. Seeing the clear sky again, this feeling was really great. Oh, there's someone. Nye Tian had just taken 2 steps when he suddenly heard rustling sounds coming from afar. He immediately frowned and jumped, hiding on a huge tree. After a moment, two armored guards appeared. Imperial Guard. Nie Tian recognized them as the two Imperial Guard soldiers, and his face immediately sank. The duty of the Imperial Guard was to protect the Imperial City, and although Tyrant Cloud Academy was in the Imperial City, it was not under the jurisdiction of the Imperial Guard. Why would these two people appear here? At this time, the two soldiers spoke. We've already been patrolling here for 3 days. What exactly does the commander want us to look for? One of the soldiers said gloomily. I don't know. It seems like Prince Bingyi and the others came to the mountain range to hunt and disappeared for no reason. Their last aura disappeared in Burial Cloud Abyss. Another soldier said, the Burial Cloud Abyss is a forbidden area in tyrannical Cloud Mountain Range. Did Prince Bingyi and the others enter it? If that's the case, it'll be terrible. The soldier who spoke first curled his lips. Anyway, I won't enter Burial Cloud Abyss to look for people. I heard that there are man-eating malicious spirits inside. They are very fierce. Another soldier said angrily. When Yetian heard this, he already understood. Lan Bingyi and the others had followed him and died in Burial Cloud Abyss a few days ago. Qin Yetian and the others must have been anxious and sent people to Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range to search for him. Finally, they found Burial Cloud Abyss. Lan Bingyi is already dead. It's best if I don't get discovered by them and leave as soon as possible. Nie Tian thought to himself as he prepared to leave. However, at this moment, a familiar figure appeared. Qin Yetian strode over, and behind him was a man in black. Did you find anything? Qin Yetian shouted to the two soldiers. Reporting to the Grand Commander, His Highness Bingyi and the others' auras have disappeared from this area. We have searched for 2 days and found nothing out of the ordinary. One of the soldiers replied carefully. Qin Yetian nodded and waved for the two soldiers to leave. Nie Tian looked at Qin Yetian. Then his gaze landed on the black-clothed man behind him. The man in black was shorter than a normal man. His entire body was hidden under the black robe, but it couldn't hide his noble temperament. It's a woman. Nie Tian looked at the man in black, wanting to hear what they were going to say next. Big brother, is there still no news of ye? The man in black spoke. It was a woman's voice, and she sounded very anxious. Big brother? Could this woman be Qin Yetian's sister and Lan Bingyi's mother? When Yetian heard the woman call Qin Yetian, he immediately guessed her identity. Yetian's guess was right. The woman in front of him was Lan Bingyi's mother, the Empress of Blue Cloud Empire, Qinya. Xiaoya, His Highness Bingyi and second brother's auras have disappeared from this area. I am guessing that they should have entered Burial Cloud Abyss. It is very possible that... Qin Yetian seemed very respectful, but when he finished speaking, his tone became a bit hesitant. Very possible what? Qinya interrupted Qin Yetian and asked nervously. Qin Yetian let out a deep sigh and said, It is very possible that they are already dead. Dead? Qinya's body suddenly froze, and despair appeared in her eyes. She seemed to have lost all her faith and shouted, I don't believe it. My ear is not dead. He is not dead. Xiaoya, don't get too emotional. I'm just guessing. Before we find His Highness' corpse, I'm unable to determine whether he is dead or alive. Qin Yetian hugged Qinya and comforted her. Lan Bingyi died, and Qinya was in pain. But how could Qin Yetian not be in pain? His son, Qin Yulong, went to kill Nie Tian together with Lan Bingyi. If Lan Bingyi died, it would be even more impossible for Qin Yulong to survive. And there was also Qin Hong Tian, who was also Qin Yetian's blood brother. Big brother, tell me, who killed my ear? Qinya suddenly seemed to have gone mad as she grabbed onto Qin Yetian and asked. Qin Yetian's eyes revealed extreme, killing intent as he said coldly, If His Highness Bingyi is dead, there's only one person who killed him, and that person is Nie Tian. Nie Tian? Qinya's eyes suddenly became scarlet red as she asked. He is the person who defeated Yer in the new student martial meet, right? Qinya did not know that Lan Bingyi went to kill Nie Tian. She only found out after Lan Bingyi disappeared for 2 days and asked Qin Yetian, Is that person? At the mention of Nie Tian, Qin Yetian clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. He clenched his teeth so hard that they almost broke as he said in a cold voice, "The Prince of Binji came to dominating Cloud Mountain Range to kill Nietian. Now that he is missing, he must have been killed by Nietian." Nietian! Qinya screamed at the top of her lungs, her eyes filled with ice-cold, killing intent as she asked, "Where's Nietian? Where's he now? I must make him pay for my Yi-Er's death." Qin Yetian took a deep breath and said solemnly, "He has not appeared yet. According to my guess, he should have died in Burial Cloud Abyss." Qin Yetian guessed that Niet Tian must have rushed into Burial Cloud Abyss after being chased by Lan Binji and the others. In order to confirm Niet Tian's death, Lan Binji also entered Burial Cloud Abyss and lost his life. Burial Cloud Abyss was the #1 forbidden area of Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range. It was not easy to enter. No. Hearing that Niet Tian was dead, Qinya let out a hysterical roar and roared repeatedly, "I won't allow Niet Tian to die. He killed my Yi-Er. I can't let him die so easily. I want him to taste all the torture in the world. I want him to live a life worse than death." At this moment, Qinya no longer had the bearing and demeanor of an empress. She was completely a deranged madwoman. Chapter 161. Suddenly, a voice rang out from above their heads, causing Qin Yetian and Qinya to raise their heads at the same time. "Niet Tian." When Qin Yetian saw the face on the tree, he immediately cried out as if he had seen a ghost, directly calling out to the eunuch, "You are Niet Tian?" Qinya immediately reacted, and the gaze she looked at Niet Tian immediately became vicious, and her roar seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps between her teeth. Niet Tian calmly looked at Qinya, who was on the verge of going crazy, chuckled, and said, "This commoner greets the Empress." Although it was a respectful greeting, Niet Tian said it with a tone that could make one vomit blood, and it seemed even more disdainful and mocking. Qinya did not care too much, and shouted out fiercely, "Niet Tian, where's my ear?" "Yeah." Niet Tian let out a cry of surprise, and said with a face of innocence, "This commoner doesn't know who Yi-Er is." Qinya was furious, and she tore off the black robe on her head and shouted out loudly, "Don't play dumb. This empress is talking about Lan Binji. Where is he?" Qinya glared at Niet Tian furiously, wishing that she could drag the latter down, skin him alive, pull out his tendons, and peel off his flesh. "Oh, so Prince Binji is the Yi-Er that the Empress was talking about. This commoner understands." However, Niet Tian still had a joking look on his face, and he looked at Qinya comically, frowned, and said, "But this commoner is not here to look after a child for the royal family, and the Empress is asking me to look for him. Where is this coming from?" "Niet Tian, you..." Qinya was momentarily speechless. She clearly knew that Niet Tian was joking, but in her heart, she still had a trace of hope, and hoped that Lan Binji was still alive, so she did not immediately make a move on Niet Tian. At this moment, Qin Yetian opened his mouth and said coldly, "Niet Tian, don't pester endlessly. This commander is asking you, is His Highness Binji dead or alive right now?" Qin Yetian hoped that Niet Tian would restrain his killing intent a little. Who would have thought that Niet Tian didn't care about his threat at all? He crossed his arms in front of his chest and teasingly smiled. "Governor Qin, I think you guys are the ones being unreasonable. I've never seen Lan Binji before. Why do you have to ask me for him?" "You..." Qin Yetian was also extremely furious, and he roared out gravely, "Niet Tian, you said that you have never seen His Highness Binji before. Then why are you here?" Niet Tian raised his eyebrows, and the provocation in his eyes intensified. He chuckled and said, "Today's weather is pretty good. I came out to enjoy the scenery and breathe some fresh air. Can I?" Furthermore, this was the Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range, which was under the jurisdiction of the Tyrant Cloud Academy. "I'm a student of Tyrant Cloud Academy, so it's perfectly reasonable for me to appear here. What's wrong with that? On the other hand, you guys are loitering around tyrannical Cloud Mountain Range for no reason. I think you guys have a guilty conscience. Shameless." Right now, Niet Tian's actions could only be described as shameless. Shameless to the point that it made one's hair stand on end. Qin Yetian clearly knew that Nyetian was trying to fool him, but he couldn't bring out any facts to refute it. Lan Binji and the others were originally there to kill Nyetian, but they were killed by Nyetian instead. Such a matter, there was no way for him to explain it. Every sentence that Nyetian said made Qin Yetian feel as if there was a huge rock pressing down on his chest. It was as if there was a ball of donkey hair in his mouth, and he couldn't swallow it nor spit it out. It was extremely uncomfortable. Right now, Qin was completely enraged by Nyetian and had long lost her rationality. She roared, "Nyetian, this empress knows that you are the one who killed my year. I want you to pay with your life." Nyetian looked at the crazy woman in front of him and frowned. He said indifferently, "Empress, shit can be eaten indiscriminately, but words cannot be spoken indiscriminately. Although you are Her Majesty the Empress and have an esteemed status, if you slander me and spout shit from your mouth, I won't let you off either." By the end of his words, Nyetian's tone had already turned gloomy and cold. Lan Binji was a prince, but he had grown into a cruel, vicious, and rabid dog. It could be said that this was all Qin Ye's doing. It was Qin Ye's almost abnormal doting that had caused Lan Binji's madness. If it wasn't for Qin Ye, Lan Binji definitely wouldn't have come to this. "Little bastard, this empress will kill you." Qin Ye's charming face suddenly turned sinister as she completely lost her last shred of rationality. She couldn't care less anymore as she let out a shrill scream and slammed her palm towards Nyetian. Nyetian frowned slightly. He could already tell that Qin Ye wasn't weak. She was already at the 5th tier of the all-adepts level. However, it was still too much for her to kill Nyetian with this level of strength. Nyetian stabbed out with his sword, and a terrifying sword aura spread out, seemingly forming an invisible barrier in front of him. Bam! Qin Ye's palm slammed against the sword aura barrier, and the barrier actually shattered. At the same time, Nyetian took advantage of the rebounding force and leaped back 50 meters. He didn't want to tangle with Qin Ye and the others any longer. They didn't have any evidence anyway, so it was best to leave as soon as possible. Qin Yetian, control that crazy woman by your side. Don't let her out to bite people. The sun bites people, and the old lady comes out to bite people as well. Is this family full of rabid dogs? Nyetian laughed loudly. His voice was still echoing in the air when he disappeared. Ah. Nyetian's figure disappeared. Qin was so angry that she screamed crazily. She really did look like a crazy bitch. Qin Yetian was actually very calm. He already knew that Lan Binji and the others were definitely dead. However, he couldn't understand how Nyetian could actually come out of the burial cloud abyss unscathed. That was the #1 forbidden area of the tyrannical Cloud Mountain Range. For thousands of years, there were countless martial artists who entered the burial cloud abyss, but he had never heard of anyone who walked out alive. Once again, Nyetian refreshed Qin Yetian's understanding. "Big brother, why didn't you make a move and kill that little bastard?" Qin saw that Qin Yetian was still in a daze and immediately became even more furious. She pointed at the latter's nose and roared. Qin Yetian shook his head slightly and said, "Xiaoya, let's give up. Nyetian isn't someone we can kill. Speaking up to here, Qin Yetian paused for a moment. In the end, he still said what he was thinking in his heart. We are not his match. Qin Yetian lowered his head deeply, as if he had aged several decades in an instant. It wasn't that Qin Yetian didn't want to make a move earlier, but that he didn't dare to make a move. He had exchanged blows with Nyetian before. At that time, the latter was still only a level 4 origin spirit martial artist, but he could already withstand his killing move head-on. Now, Nyetian already had level 8 origin spirit strength, and he even condensed horrifying sword chi. Qin Yetian had a feeling that was not too real, but very strong, that if he and Nyetian had a life-and-death battle, the one who lost would definitely be him. Ever since exchanging blows with Nyetian, regardless of whether it was the Qin family, Lan Binji, or the Bloodbat sect, they all ended in defeat. Even all of them suffered crushing defeats. Could it be explained just by saying that Nyetian's luck was good? Of course not. Strength, Only strength could explain everything. Nietian possessed unknown and horrifying strength. This was the crux of Qin Yetian and the rest's failure. Bullshit. But Qinya completely did not realize it. With a fierce roar, she turned around furiously and said, "If you don't kill him, I'll find other people to kill him. That little bastard killed my year. I definitely won't let him live." Qinya left right after she finished talking. Chapter 162. After leaving Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range, Nietian immediately headed for the black market. Gu Yi promised to give him the Devil Fire diagram, and he could not wait any longer. Not long after, Nietian arrived at Dan Hart Pavilion. From afar, he saw Dwarf Tong Fu sitting in front of the door in a daze, looking very melancholic and desolate. Nietian looked at Tong Fu and laughed in his heart. This kid sure is relaxed. He's looking at the sky at a 45-degree angle, pretending to be a philosopher. Nietian walked over and did not beat around the bush. He asked directly, "Ah Fu, where's old Gu?" When Tong Fu saw that the person was Nietian, he stood up abruptly. However, he frowned and said, "Didn't my big brother go out with you? Why are you asking me?" "What?" Nietian immediately felt his mind go blank. He was done talking, but Gu Yi had not returned yet. Something must have happened. Gu Yi had left Burial Cloud Abyss 2 days ago. Nietian thought that he had already returned to Dan Hart Pavilion. He did not expect that the former had disappeared. Gu Yi would definitely not escape with the Devil Fire. Furthermore, there was nothing to escape from. Nietian would not snatch his Devil Fire. Furthermore, Nietian could tell that Gu Yi was very concerned about Tong Fu. If he returned safely, he would definitely return to Dan Hart Pavilion immediately. Now that Gu Yi had not returned and was missing, there was only one explanation. Something had happened to him. "Kid, is my big brother in trouble? You guys went out together. What did you do? Why isn't my big brother back yet?" Tong Fu saw Nietian's expression change. Even a fool would know that something had happened to Gu Yi. Nietian forced himself to calm down. He comforted Tong Fu and told him not to get agitated. If old Gu was captured, who would do it? It was impossible for Qin Yetian because Nietian had already seen Qin Yetian. If he had captured Gu Yi, he would not have wasted so much time talking with Nietian. It was also unlikely for the Shang family. They probably did not know that Shang Mingyu was already dead. The remaining 2 factions were Bloodbat Sect and Fan Jinwu. Tang Yuyu was someone from the Bloodbat Sect. Therefore, there was a possibility that someone from the Bloodbat Sect had been waiting in the Burial Cloud Abyss in advance. When they saw old Gu coming out of the Burial Cloud Abyss, they immediately captured him. It was also very likely that Fan Jinwu had sent Fan Jinji to kill Nietian. Clearly, it was Fan Jinwu's order. Fan Jinwu was worried that his brother would fail, so he was guarding outside Burial Cloud Abyss. Just as Nietian's brain was rapidly analyzing the situation, 2 figures appeared not far away from him. "Nietian," a familiar voice rang out. Nietian turned around. It was Tang 13. In Tang 13's arms was a person covered in blood. It was Gu Yi. "Big brother." Tong Fu stepped forward, took Gu Yi from Tang 13's hands, and quickly carried him into the Dan Xian Pavilion. Nietian followed him into the Dan Hart Pavilion to check on Gu Yi's condition. Gu Yi's body was covered in horrifying wounds. He was bleeding profusely. Tong Fu watched from his side. Clenching his fists, he said, Tian, no matter who hurt you, Fu will make him pay 100-fold or 1,000-fold. After Nietian examined Gu Yi's body, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Yi's wounds looked horrifying, but they were not fatal. Nietian fed him a blood yuan pill and ordered Tong Fu to clean Gu Yi's wounds. Nietian walked out of the inner hall and came to 13's side. It had only been half a month and 13 was already at the first tier of all creations. Ghost Eye's power improved really fast. Tang 13's appearance made things clear. The people who captured Gu Yi were definitely from Bloodbat Sect. "Nietian, how is old Gu?" 13 asked nervously when she saw Nietian walk out. "He is fine. His life is not in danger. He'll wake up soon." Nietian nodded and asked, 13, what is going on? Why are you with Gu Yi? Tang 13 frowned, as if she was worried about Gu Yi's safety. She said, 2 days ago, I received orders from the headmaster to wait outside the burial cloud abyss with 20 other assassins. It seems like we're going to help someone. Then old Gu suddenly ran out with a woman on his back. I've seen old Gu before, so I saved him. 13 made it sound simple. In reality, he carried Gu Yi and ran for 2 days and 2 nights before losing the Bloodbat sect assassins. And he was already viewed as a traitor by Bloodbat sect. Where's the woman old Gu brought? Nie Tian asked. 13 stilled and became even more nervous. She grabbed Nie Tian and asked, You know that female assassin? Was she the one who tried to assassinate you? Nie Tian saw 13's nervousness and guessed that 13 already knew Tang Yuyu was the one he was looking for. Nie Tian calmed down and asked, Did you do everything you could to enter the Bloodbat sect to find someone? Yes. 13 nodded. Then the person you're looking for is on Gu Yi's back. Nie Tian basically understood everything and said, I've seen her before. She has a silver pendant on her chest, just like the one you have. That's the same heart pendant, right? Both pendants are of the same heart. Within 100 meters, there will be a reaction. Tang Yuyu. Hearing Nie Tian's words, 13 felt like he was struck by lightning. He stiffened and almost lost his balance. 13, are you okay? Nie Tian held on to 13 and signaled for him to calm down. Seeing 13's reaction, Nie Tian guessed that Tang Yuyu must have fallen into the hands of Bloodbat sect. But how could 13 calm down now? He suddenly lost control and shouted, I want to save Tang Yuyu. Calm down. Nie Tian, of course, would not let 13 go. He grabbed onto him tightly and shouted, Let go of me. Tang 13 was agitated. He screamed with murderous intent, Nie Tian, if you stop me, I will kill you as well. Nie Tian knew that 13 had lost his mind and shouted, Fu, come out. Hearing the shout, Tong Fu dashed out from the inner hall. You 2 kids, what are you doing? Tong Fu looked at Nie Tian and 13 and was shocked. Knock him out. He's crazy. Nie Tian shouted. Tong Fu was shocked at first. Then, seeing that 13 was not in a good mood, he punched 13's head and knocked him out. Dwarf Tong Fu was a warrior of the 9th rank of the giant spirit realm. He was 1 step away from forming his god wheel. His attack was precise and only knocked 13 out. Phew! Nie Tian let out a long breath and signaled Tong Fu to take 13 to the inner hall to rest. Tong Fu had just carried Tang 13 away when Gu Yi's body trembled as he walked out. After taking the blood circulation pill and the qi consolidating pill, Gu Yi's face looked better. At least he could walk on his own. Nie Tian, Gu Yi weakly shouted. Chapter 163. In the lobby of Danhart Pavilion, Nie Tian and Gu Yi sat opposite each other. Gu Yi looked at Nie Tian with guilt and said, Nie Tian, I didn't protect that little girl well. She was taken away by the Bloodbat sect. Nie Tian glanced at Gu Yi. The latter was also heavily injured. If not for Tang 13, he would probably end up like Tang Yuyu. He couldn't blame him. Nie Tian, what's the situation in the burial cloud abyss? What happened to Doomsday Flame's clone, Scarlet Flame? Gu Yi couldn't help but ask. Nie Tian briefly explained the situation in the burial cloud abyss and finally said, Doomsday Flame's main body and strongest clone, Purple Flame, escaped. But I'm sure they can't have gone far. They should still be in a nearby empire or city. Although Nie Tian had made it sound very simple, Gu Yi could imagine the dangers involved, especially when Nie Tian had forcefully swallowed Scarlet Flame's forked tongue. Gu Yi really had no idea how Scarlet Flame had managed to do it. Scarlet Flame was a ruthless character that even a Tier 5 sealing scroll couldn't seal. At this time, Gu Yi took out the Demon Fire diagram and handed it to Nie Tian, saying, You helped me seal White Flame's Lie XN, so you fulfilled the promise between us. The Demon Fire diagram is yours. Thank you. Nie Tian didn't stand on ceremony. He took it and immediately unfolded it. When the Demonic Fire diagram unfolded, white halos flowed and quickly gathered into a new map. All the white light gathered at one point and flickered, but it was clearly weaker than before. Doomsday Flame really is condensing a physical body, Nye Tian said in shock. The white light on the demonic fire diagram weakened, indicating that the demonic fire diagram's reaction to Doomsday Flame had weakened. This undoubtedly meant that Doomsday Flame had condensed a physical body and the demonic fire aura in his body was weakening. When Doomsday Flame completely got rid of the demonic fire aura, the demonic fire diagram wouldn't be able to track his location. Gu was also very surprised, saying, I wonder if Doomsday Flame has successfully condensed a physical body. Nye Tian nodded and said, it should have succeeded. I'm guessing that the aura of demonic fire in the Doomsday Flame's body will still exist before its strength reaches the giant spirit realm. When his strength reaches the giant spirit realm, the devil fire diagram will no longer be able to track his position. Gu was slightly surprised and said, according to what you said, after the Doomsday Flame condenses its body, it will become an ordinary martial artist and will need to cultivate again. If it wants to reach the giant spirit realm, it will need several years or even dozens of years. No, Nye Tian shook his head and muttered. After the demonic flame condenses a physical body, although it needs to cultivate again, the speed of cultivation far surpasses that of an ordinary person. From the first level of the Origin Meridian realm to the first level of the giant spirit realm, there is a need to cross 3 large realms. However, the Doomsday Flame only needs 3 months at most. 3 months. Gu sucked in a cold breath and said in shock, this is 3 major realms. The fiend fire is indeed freakish. To cross 3 large realms in 3 months. Only a miraculous life form like the fiend fire could do it. If it was an ordinary martial artist, to be able to rise by 1 small realm in 3 months was already very good. Nye Tian, are you still going to continue chasing? Gu saw the strange look in Nye Tian's eyes and could not help but ask. Nye Tian did not hide it and nodded. I will definitely continue chasing. I must obtain the Doomsday Flame. As Nye Tian said this, he pointed at the Devil Fire diagram and continued. From the display of the Devil Fire diagram, the Doomsday Flame should have gone to the border city of the Blue Cloud Empire, Heaven Luo City. Heaven Luo City. Gu looked at the Devil Fire diagram. As expected, it was at the border of the Blue Cloud Empire, but he sighed, Heaven Luo City is located at the border of the Blue Cloud Empire, adjacent to the second-rate Fengqin Empire. At the same time, it is also watched by the Water Crow and Rising Sun Empires. This is an exceptionally dangerous place. For the Doomsday Flame to choose such a place to stay is very smart. Heaven Luo City was located at the border of the Blue Cloud Empire, and the empires that intersected with it were all second-rate empires. They were very powerful, so this was a place where dragons and snakes mixed together, and it was an extremely dangerous place. However, for the Doomsday Flame, this kind of chaotic place was the safest, and it could allow him to safely pass through his period of weakness. Nye Tian smiled sinisterly, kept the Devil Fire diagram, and said in a cold voice, Heaven Luo City, I want it. You want it? Gu was stunned. He did not understand the meaning of Nye Tian's words. Nye Tian put the Devil Fire diagram into his spatial ring and did not explain too much. Now is not the time to deal with the Doomsday Flame. There were still 3 months, and Nye Tian still had to think of a way to solve the problem of Jean de Bayo. There was also Tang Yu, who was also rather troublesome. Nye Tian immediately set his gaze on the purple dragon whisker in the center of the hall and said bluntly, Old Gu, I want this purple dragon whisker. The purple dragon whisker was a 7th-tier medicinal ingredient. Although it was far from being comparable to a 9th-tier medicinal ingredient, it could still help Jean de Bayo temporarily. Gu laughed mischievously and waved his hand, saying, This time, you were able to successfully seal the demonic flame. This old man owes you. The purple dragon whisker is yours. Many thanks, old Gu. Nye Tian stepped forward and kept the purple dragon whisker, saying seriously, this purple dragon whisker can be considered as me borrowing it from you. In the future, I will definitely return you a satisfactory gift. Then this old man will remember it in my heart. Gu laughed mischievously. In his heart, He knew that a person like Tian would do what he said. To be able to get a promise from him, this transaction was worth it. Tian nodded seriously. Big brother, the little kid inside has woken up. Should we knock him out again? At this moment, Tong Fu hurriedly ran over and asked. No need. Without waiting for Tian and Gu Yi to speak, Tang 13 already walked over and said expressionlessly. At this moment, Tang 13 was very calm. She was so calm that there was not a trace of emotion on her face. Tian walked over and said solemnly, 13, don't worry. Tang Yuyu is a member of the Bloodbat Gate and a very powerful assassin. I think the Bloodbat Gate Master must value her a lot. She will not be in danger if she is taken away by the Bloodbat Gate. Judging from Tang Yuyu's strength, she must be an important assassin of the Bloodbat Gate. Therefore, even if she was taken away by the Bloodbat Gate, nothing would happen to her. Moreover, the Bloodbat Gate Master would do his best to save her. Therefore, Tian believed that not only would Tang Yuyu not die, but she would also be treated and taken care of very carefully. On the other hand, Tang 13, after saving Gu Yi, would definitely be seen as a thorn in the side of the Bloodbat Gate. Therefore, if Tang 13 continued to stay in the kingdom of blue clouds, she would definitely be in great danger. Unless she stayed by Gu Yi's side. With the protection of a powerhouse like Tong Fu, no matter how many people the Bloodbat Gate sent, it would be useless. However, a person like Tang 13 was obviously not willing to be a little lamb that was protected by others. Tian guessed that Tang 13 would still need to go to the Bloodbat Gate. If he couldn't save Tang Yuyu, he would definitely not give up. Tang 13 suddenly lifted her head, her eyes flashing with a strange light. She said, I need to go to the Fengqin Empire. I will be back within a month. After saying this, she turned and left. Chapter 164. Looking at Tang 13's disappearing figure, Tian could roughly guess why he went to Fengqin Empire to ask for reinforcements. Fengqin Empire, a second-rate empire in the 3,000 small worlds. Lanyan Empire was a third-rate empire that was subordinate to Fengqin Empire. Fengqin Empire's national power far surpassed Lanyan Empire. Previously, Gu San was invited by Qin clan from Fengqin Empire to treat Lan Bingxian. Unfortunately, he didn't treat her well and left dejectedly. Tang clan was the head of the 4 great clans in the 3,000 small worlds. Their family's power was terrifying. Tian guessed that Tang clan definitely had a branch in Fengqin Empire. Therefore, Tang 13 went to Fengqin Empire to ask for reinforcements. With Tang 13's identity and status, he would definitely be able to get reinforcements from Fengqin Empire. Therefore, Tian didn't need to worry about Tang Yuyu's matter. Tian, who is this youth? Why are his eyes so strange? Gui saw something from Tang 13. Even though the latter saved him, he still didn't know Tang 13's true identity. Tian shook his head and smiled. I also don't know his true identity. We only met by chance. Even though it was perfunctory, what Tian said was the truth. He and Tang 13 met by chance, and even now, he didn't know the relationship between Tang 13 and Tang Hao. Tang Yuyu's matter had temporarily come to an end. Tian prepared to leave and return to Jin residence. Gu Yi stood up and said, Tian, after I recover, I will leave this place after a period of time. If you go to Heaven Luo City in the future, you can find me in the nearby Danwu City. I am at the Danwu Alchemist Guild. As Gu Yi spoke, he took out a black token and handed it to Tian. Tian was slightly dazed and immediately remembered. Gu Yi's goal in the black market was to get the demon fire. Now that he had it, there was naturally no need for it to continue flowing. Tian took the token and looked at it. This was a simple and exquisite black iron token. The word ancient was engraved on the front and red dress was engraved on the back. There were also 6 golden flames on it, but it was unknown what they represented. Thank you. Tian didn't think too much about it and put the token into his spatial ring. The Doomsday Flame's main body was in Heaven Luo City, so Tian would definitely go there. Taking a look at the ancient wasn't a bad idea. Old Gu, When do you plan to leave? Nie Tian asked. Gu Yi replied with a smile. When my injuries recover, it will take 5 days at the earliest, 10 days at the latest. Oh, Nie Tian nodded, calculated the time, and said, I'll see you off when you leave. No need. Gu Yi smiled faintly. Soon after, he thought of something and said, Nie Tian. 1.5 months later, the surrounding 3 great second-rate empires will hold an alchemy grand meet in Danwu City. At that time, the alchemy geniuses of the various empires will gather together and compete for a while. I hope you can go as well. Even if you don't participate, it's good to observe. Alchemy grand meet? Nie Tian was slightly taken aback. Gu Yi explained. Danwu City is located at the border of the 3 great second-rate empires, Fengqin Empire, Shui Wu Empire, and Sunchu Empire. Every 3 years, the 3 empires will jointly hold an alchemy grand meet in Danwu City to select outstanding alchemy geniuses. At that time, the alchemy experts and alchemy geniuses of the various empires will gather together. It can be said to be a grand meet for the 3 empires' alchemy exchanges. During the alchemy grand meet, there will be an alchemy competition for alchemists below the age of 25. The top 3 will be decided and will be given generous rewards and the best treatment. Are you interested in giving it a try? Alchemy competition. Nie Tian curled his lips and smiled, instantly losing interest. If he were to compete with these alchemy geniuses in alchemy, that would be too much of a bully. It was like a strong man going to fight a baby in boxing. No matter how generous the rewards were, it would be boring. I'm not interested in participating in the competition, but observing is fine too. Seeing that Nie Tian was not interested, Gu Yi smiled awkwardly and said, We'll talk about it when the time comes. Nie Tian said vaguely, then said, I'll take my leave. See you again. Gu Yi was very solemn as he nodded. Nie Tian did not stay any longer, turning to leave. Gu Yi looked at Nie Tian's figure, standing on the spot and murmuring, Nie Tian, it's the first time this old man has seen a monstrous alchemy talent like you. I'm really looking forward to you participating in the alchemy grand meet. If you can win the championship of the alchemy competition, then you can obtain the Danhart Soul Stone. The Danhart Soul Stone. Tong Fu saw Gu Yi's dazed expression and said with some dissatisfaction, Big brother, is this kid really that impressive? I think he doesn't have any ability, so he doesn't dare to participate in the alchemy competition. Gu Yi's eyes turned cold and he said, Fu, don't call Nie Tian kid anymore in the future. That kid is only in his teens. What else do you call him if not kid? Tong Fu's beard trembled, expressing his dissatisfaction. You have to call him Mr. Nie. Gu Yi said seriously. Mr. Nie? Tong Fu let out a strange cry and decisively refused. I won't call him that. I'll just call him kid. Gu Yi put his hands behind his back and said with a sharp gaze, If you don't call him that, big brother won't help you find a wife. Hearing that his wife was gone, Tong Fu immediately became anxious. He pulled Gu Yi and said, Big brother, I'll call him okay? Gu Yi replied, and immediately entered the inner hall. Tong Fu followed behind Gu Yi, mumbling along the way. That kid with the surname Nie, just what's so impressive about him? Why does big brother treat him so well, and even force this uncle to call him Mr. Nie? It really makes this uncle distressed. After leaving the black market, Nie Tian directly returned to the Jin residence. On the way, he felt that there were people following him. They seemed to be people from the Imperial Guards, but they didn't make a move on him. After returning to the Jin residence, Nie Tian directly went to see Jin Mingxin. Jin Debao was cultivating in seclusion, and he would only come out in half a month. Nie Tian planned to use the purple dragon whisker to help him temporarily suppress the 3,000 fiend god seals, and then slowly think of a way. Hearing that Nie Tian had returned, Qiushan also came to the Jin residence's meeting hall. Nie Tian, Jin Mingxin, and Qiushan sat down respectively. This time, Nie Tian only spent 4 days outside, but he gained a lot. Mr. Nie, there are rumors in the Imperial City that you killed Prince Benji. Is it true? Jin Mingxin didn't beat around the bush and directly asked Nie Tian. Nie Tian looked at Jin Mingxin and laughed playfully. He didn't hold back and said, Lan Binji was indeed killed by me, and I also killed Tyrant Cloud Academy's Inner Courts #1 Shang Mingyu, Tyrant Cloud Academy's teacher Fan Jinji, and a 9th level all-manifestation martial artist from the Qin clan. Although Jin Mingxin was already mentally prepared, personally confirming this news from Nie Tian's mouth was still very shocking. Actually, 4 days ago, Nie Tian and Jin Mingxin had met once. Nie Tian only said that he was going to Tyrant Cloud Mountain Range, and then asked Jin Mingxin to leak this news. How intelligent was Jin Mingxin? He naturally understood that this was Nie Tian's plan to lure the snakes out of their hole. It was just that he didn't expect that he would lure out so many snakes, and so many snakes.